Welcome to the National Occult Archives. This collection presents 48 forbidden supernatural documents from 12th and 19th century Britain. Case files never meant to be revealed. Each testimony details genuine paranormal encounters of possession speaking Latin, ghostly apparitions, unexplained phenomena, and occult mysteries that remain unsolved. Let us begin. Case file NOA 157D. Classification. Physician's record. Date of statement 9th May 1547. Location Ashford, Kent. Medical record of Dr. Edmund Whitley Were. Dr. Edmund Whitley, physician to the parish of Ashford. Do record the matter of the girl Margaret Holt, age 14 years. She was brought to my surgery by her father on the 5th day of May. The child would not speak English. Only Latin poured from her lips, though she had never studied the language. Her father swore she knew no Latin, being the daughter of a blacksmith. I questioned her in English. She answered in perfect ecclesiastical Latin, her voice deeper than any girl's should be. I asked her name. She replied, "Sum qui sum ante te natus." I am he who was born before you. The words chilled me. I examined her throat, thinking some ailment caused the strange voice. She seized my wrist with strength no child possessed. Her grip left bruises that remain upon my arm still. She spoke again in Latin. "Medicus, tu non potes me sanare." "Physician, you cannot heal me." I called for the priest immediately. Father Oswald arrived within the hour. He began prayers in Latin. The girl laughed, a sound too old for her years. She responded to each prayer with mockery in the same ancient tongue. Father Oswald's hands trembled as he held his cross before her. The girl spoke words I dare not repeat, profane inversions of sacred texts. Her eyes remained her own throughout, filled with terror. She was trapped inside herself, watching as another spoke through her mouth. Father Oswald performed rituals for 3 days. On the 3rd day, she screamed in English. One word only: help. Then the Latin returned, flowing like poison from her tongue. Her father removed her on the 4th day, despite Father Oswald's protests. He took her to his sister's farm in Sussex. I received word last week. The girl still speaks only Latin. She has not uttered English since that single word. The voice that uses her grows stronger each day. Dr. Edmund Whitley, physician, Ashford, Kent, 9th May, 1547. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Medical record discovered in Kent County Archives. Father Oswald's ritual notes were never found. No record exists of Margaret Holt after 1547. The Latin phrases documented suggest knowledge beyond a medieval child's education. End of file. Case file NOA 162-3K. Classification. Constable's report. Date of statement 22nd October 1623. Location Blackwood Forest, Herefordshire. Official report of Constable Thomas Merrick I. Thomas Merrick, Constable of the parish of Eastnor, do report the events of the 19th day of October. A woodcutter named John Pascoe came to my house at dawn. He was pale as death itself. He claimed to have seen something in Blackwood Forest. I accompanied him to the location he described. We entered the forest at the eastern edge near the old standing stones. The trees grew thick there, blocking all sunlight though it was midday. Pascoe led me deeper into the woods. He stopped suddenly, pointing ahead. Between 2 ancient oaks stood a figure in grey. It faced away from us, perfectly still. I called out, asking if the person required assistance. The figure did not move. I approached closer. Pasco remained behind, refusing to advance. I came within 20 paces of the figure. It wore clothes of a style not seen for centuries, according to my father's descriptions of old garments. I called out again. The figure turned. I saw its face. The features were blurred, like a reflection in disturbed water. Where eyes should have been, there was only shadow. The mouth moved, but no sound emerged. I stepped backward. The figure raised one arm, pointing deeper into the forest. I followed its gesture with my eyes. Beyond it, further into the trees, I saw others. 7 more figures in grey, all standing motionless among the oaks. All faced the same direction, pointing the same way. I turned to call Pasco forward. When I looked back, all 8 figures had vanished. Pasco and I searched the area for 2 hours. We found no footprints in the soft earth, no broken branches or disturbed leaves, nothing to indicate anyone had stood there. 3 days later, a shepherd reported seeing the same figures in Blackwood. They stood in the exact same locations, all pointing deeper into the forest. No one has dared to follow where they point. I returned to the forest yesterday with 2 other constables. The figures were there again, still pointing, still silent. We did not approach them. Thomas Merrick, Constable Eastner, Herefordshire, 22nd October, 1623. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft, Parish Records, confirm multiple sightings of these figures between 1623 and 1647. The area they indicate remains unexplored in historical accounts. Modern surveys of Blackwood Forest note unusual magnetic anomalies in that specific region. End of file. Case file. NOA 1498M classification. Monastery Chronicle. Date of statement 3rd December 1498. Location Whitby Abbey, North Yorkshire. Chronicle of Brother Aldwin Fur. Brother Aldwin, keeper of the night hours, do record the disturbances within our monastery. It began on the 28th of November. Brother Thomas was found in the chapel at midnight. He knelt before the altar, weeping. When I approached, he turned to me. His eyes were wide with terror. He told me he had heard singing. Beautiful voices, he said, like angels. The singing came from beneath the chapel floor. I heard nothing. I led him back to his cell, thinking exhaustion had addled his mind. The next night, 3 brothers heard the singing. They woke me in great distress. We gathered in the chapel. I heard it then. Voices rising from below, singing in Latin. The words were a prayer, but reversed. Backwards prayers, twisted into something wrong. We could not determine where the sound originated. Brother Thomas pressed his ear to the floor stones. The singing grew louder beneath him. Prior Benedict ordered the floor stones removed the following day. Workers found nothing below except solid earth. Yet that night, the singing returned, louder than before. 7 brothers heard it now. The words became clearer. They sang the Mass for the dead, but the names they sang were ours. Each brother heard his own name in the reverse prayer. Brother Thomas heard his name most clearly. He fled to his cell and locked the door. We found him the next morning. He had passed peacefully in his sleep. There were no marks upon him. His face held an expression of absolute terror. The singing continued each night for a week. Each night, another brother heard his name. Prior Benedict called for an investigation of the chapel's history. Records showed a plague cemetery lay beneath this site in the year of our Lord 1100. Hundreds were buried there in unmarked graves. The chapel was built atop them 50 years later. The singing has not ceased. We have moved our night prayers to a different building, but we still hear the voices. They follow us through the corridors. They seep through walls. Each night, the singers call new names, always in that reverse prayer, always singing the Mass for those who have not yet died. Brother Aldwin, keeper of night hours, Whitby Abbey, North Yorkshire, 3rd December, 1498. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Final entry in Brother Aldwin's chronicle. Abbey records cease abruptly in January 1499. The monastery was abandoned that winter. Archaeological surveys in 1923 confirmed a plague burial site beneath the chapel foundation. End of file. Case file NOA 1705R. Classification: Innkeeper's account. Date of statement: 15th March 1705. Location: the Grey Horse. Inn, Dartmoor, Devon. Account of William Thorne. Innkeeper Buzz says, William Thorne, keeper of the Grey Horse Inn, do provide account of the disturbances in room 7. No guest has slept there peacefully in 2 years. All report the same occurrence. Knocking begins at midnight. 3 slow knocks upon the door. When the door is opened, no one stands there. The knocking then comes from inside the walls. 3 knocks, always the same, moving from wall to wall around the room. The guest flees or endures until dawn. I have stayed in room 7 myself 5 times. Each time, the same experience. 3 knocks at midnight. I opened the door immediately. The corridor was empty. I closed the door. The knocking began inside the walls. I lit every candle in the room. The knocking continued, circling me. 3 knocks from the north wall, 3 from the east, 3 from the south, 3 from the west. Then silence, until 3 knocks came from directly beneath my feet, from below the floorboards. I investigated the room below during daylight. It was a storage cellar. Nothing unusual within. No explanation for the sounds. My wife suggested we remove the panels from room 7's walls. We hired carpenters for this purpose. They stripped the walls to bare stone. That night, I stayed in room 7 again. Midnight arrived. 3 knocks sounded from inside the solid stone itself. A traveling scholar stayed here last month. He claimed knowledge of such phenomena. He spent 3 nights in room 7 taking notes. He departed on the 4th morning. His face was grey. He paid double his bill and left without explanation. He abandoned his notes in the room. I read them. He had written only 1 sentence, repeated on every page. They are counting down. I do not understand what this means. The knocking continues nightly. Always 3 knocks. Always at midnight. I have considered closing room 7 permanently, but the disturbance has begun in room 6. The same pattern. 3 knocks at midnight, circling the walls, moving beneath the floor. Last week, it started in room 5. The pattern advances 1 room each month. My inn has 12 rooms. William Thorne, innkeeper, the Grey Horse Inn, Dartmoor, Devon, 15th March 1705. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The Grey Horse Inn burned to the ground in October 1705. William Thorne and his family escaped unharmed. The fire began in room 12 at midnight. No source of ignition was ever determined. End of file. Case file NOA 1581H. Classification: Hermit's Testament. Date of statement: 7th August 1581. Location: Godchill, Isle of Wight. Testament of Brother Marcus, Hermit the Third. Brother Marcus, Hermit of Godchill. Do provide testament to what dwells near my hermitage. I have lived alone on this hill for 17 years. My cell is small, built of stone, with one window facing north. The forest surrounds me on all sides. At night, I hear movement in the trees, not animals. Something that walks as men walk, but the footsteps are wrong, too heavy, too slow, too deliberate. I first heard them 3 years past. They circle my hermitage each night, always the same pattern, approaching from the west, circling clockwise around my cell, stopping at the window. I keep the shutters closed now, but I hear breathing outside, deep and labored, like something struggling to draw air. It stands there for hours, breathing, waiting. I pray throughout these hours. The breathing never ceases. At dawn, the footsteps retreat into the forest. I investigated once, foolishly. I followed the sound at daybreak. The tracks in the soft earth were not human, too large. The toes spread unnaturally wide. The depth suggested immense weight. I followed them for half a mile into the forest. They led to a clearing I had never seen before. In the center stood an old stone. Ancient markings covered its surface. The tracks circled this stone 3 times, then led back toward my hermitage. I returned quickly. That night, the breathing at my window was louder. Angry, if breath can sound angry. It knew I had followed. It knew I had found the stone. Last month, I woke to find my door open. I always bar it from within. The bar had been lifted. The door stood wide. Muddy prints covered my floor. The same tracks I had seen in the forest. They led from my door to my sleeping pallet, to where I lay, then back out again. I did not wake when it entered. I did not hear it approach. It stood over me while I slept. Now I do not sleep. I sit with my back to the wall, my eyes on the door. The breathing continues each night. The footsteps circle, but the door has not opened again. I believe it is waiting for something. I believe it will enter again, when I am too weak to wake. Brother Marcus, Hermit Godchill, Isle of Wight. 7th August 1581. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Brother Marcus disappeared in September 1581. His hermitage was found empty. The door stood open. Tracks surrounded the building but did not lead away. Local records describe the ancient stone mentioned, noting its pre-Christian origins. End of file. Case file. NOA 1644P. Classification. Priest testimony. Date of statement. 19th January 1644. Location. St. Bartholomew's Church, Suffolk. Testimony of Father Gregory Walsh Verse. Father Gregory Walsh, priest of St. Bartholomew's, do testify regarding the child Elizabeth Crane. She was brought to me by her mother on the 10th of January. The child is 8 years old. She has not spoken since Christmas Eve. Not truly silent. She whispers constantly. Words no one can understand. Her mother believes it is Latin. I listened carefully to the child. It is indeed Latin. But Latin no child should know. She recites passages from texts kept in locked church libraries, forbidden texts, books of ritual and binding. I asked how she learned these words. She stopped whispering. She looked at me with clear eyes. She spoke in a man's voice, deep and ancient. Ego docui eam, I taught her. Then she resumed whispering. I brought her into the church. I thought to pray over her. As we entered, every candle extinguished simultaneously. The child laughed. Not her laugh, the man's laugh, from her small throat. I lit the candles again. They died as soon as the flame touched wick. 6 times I attempted this. 6 times darkness reclaimed the church. The child's whispers grew louder. I recognized the words now. She spoke a binding ritual, the type used to trap spirits within consecrated ground. But she spoke it backwards. A ritual of release, of freedom for what should remain bound. Her mother wept in the doorway. I took the child to the baptismal font. I blessed water and touched it to her forehead. She screamed. A grown man's scream of rage. The water on her skin turned black. It ran down her face like ink. She seized my hand. Her grip was ice cold. She pulled me close and whispered in my ear, in English this time, "I am coming through." Then she collapsed. For 1 hour she lay unconscious. When she woke, she spoke English again. She remembered nothing. She asked for her mother sweetly. But at night, I am told, the whispering returns. The same Latin phrases, spoken in that deep masculine voice, growing clearer each evening, growing stronger. I have written to the bishop. I await his instruction. But I fear instruction will arrive too late. Father Gregory Walsh, priest St. Bartholomew's Church, Suffolk, 19th January 1644. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft Bishop's records confirm for Father Walsh's letter. No response was ever sent. Elizabeth Crane appears in no records after January 1644. St. Bartholomew's Church was deconsecrated in 1645 for reasons not specified in official documents. End of file. Case file NOA 1729 W classification. Gamekeeper's report. Date of statement 4th November 1729. Location Savernake Forest, Wiltshire. Report of Edward Blackwood, gamekeeper Wolves. Edward Blackwood, gamekeeper to Lord Aylesbury. Do report the occurrence in the deep forest. I was checking traps on the first day of November, deep in the oldest part of Savernake, where few venture. I heard a child crying. The sound came from ahead, beyond a stand of ancient beeches. I called out. The crying stopped immediately. I continued forward. In a small clearing, I found her, a girl of perhaps 6 years. She wore a white dress, clean and perfect. Strange, as the forest floor was thick with mud. I asked her name. She did not answer. She stared at me with grey eyes. I asked where her parents were. She pointed into the forest behind her. I saw no one there. I approached her carefully. As I drew near, I realized something was wrong. She did not blink, not once in all the time I watched her. Her chest did not rise and fall with breath. She simply stood, perfectly still, staring. I asked again about her parents. This time she spoke. "They are waiting." Her voice was flat, emotionless. I asked where they waited. She pointed again into the trees. This time she smiled. It was not a child's smile. I asked if she was lost. She shook her head slowly. "I am found," she said. Then she began walking into the forest. I followed, thinking to return her to safety. She walked without making a sound. No leaves crunched beneath her feet. No branches snapped. She moved as if she weighed nothing at all. We walked for 20 minutes. The forest grew darker. The trees pressed closer together. She stopped suddenly. She turned to face me. "We are here," she said. I saw no one else. No parents. No dwelling. Nothing but trees and shadows. I asked where her parents were. She pointed at my feet. I looked down. The ground beneath me was soft, too soft. Disturbed earth. A burial place. I stepped back quickly. The girl's smile widened. They have been waiting for someone to find them, she said. I turned and ran. Behind me, I heard her laughter. It followed me through the forest. Multiple voices laughing. Adults and children together. When I emerged from the forest, I reported to Lord Aylesbury. He sent men to search. They found the burial site. 7 bodies, a family, dead for at least 20 years. They found no trace of any living child. Edward Blackwood, gamekeeper, Savernake Forest, Wiltshire, 4th November, 1729. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Parish records show the Marsh family disappeared in 1709. 7 members. The daughter was named Catherine, age 6, at time of disappearance. Blackwood's description of the child matches the family portrait held in local archives. End of file. Case file NOA 1596L. Classification. Physician's notes. Date of statement 23rd June 1596. Location Bath, Somerset. Medical notes of Dr. Richard Pemberton First. Dr. Richard Pemberton. Physician of Bath. Do record the case of the widow Anne Fletcher. She sought my consultation on the 18th of June. She complained of dreams. The same dream each night for 3 months. She stands in her bedchamber. A figure stands in the corner, tall and thin, dressed in black. Its face is covered by a dark veil. The figure does not move. It simply stands, watching her. In the dream, she cannot move or speak. She can only watch as the figure slowly raises one hand. It points at her. Then she wakes. I told her these were natural fears, the mind playing tricks during sleep. She insisted there was more. Each morning after the dream, she finds something moved in her room. A chair pulled from its place. A curtain opened that she had closed. A candle burned down, though she lit none before sleeping. I suggested a servant might enter while she slept. She lives alone. No servants. No one enters her home. I advised a sleeping draught. She thanked me and departed. She returned yesterday morning. Her face was pale. Her hands trembled. The dream had changed. Now the figure no longer stands in the corner. It stands beside her bed, close enough to touch. She still cannot move in the dream, cannot cry out. The figure leans over her. She feels breath upon her face. Cold breath. She hears whispering. Words she cannot understand. When she wakes, her blankets are pulled back. Her nightdress is cold, as if something icy touched it. And there are marks. She showed me her arms. Pale fingerprints, like bruises. 5 on each arm, as if someone had held her while she slept. I examined the marks carefully. They were unlike any bruises I had seen. The skin was not broken, but the prints were precise. Too large to be her own fingers. I suggested she stay with family. She refused. The house belonged to her late husband. She would not abandon it. Last night, she sent her maid to fetch me urgently. I arrived to find her door barred from outside. Her windows were sealed shut. I broke the door open. She sat in the center of her room, rocking slowly. She would not speak. She only pointed to the corner, where the figure had first stood in her dreams. On the floor was written a single word, scratched into the wooden boards. Soon. Anne Fletcher remains in my care. She has not slept in 3 days. She refuses to close her eyes. Dr. Richard Pemberton Physician, Bath, Somerset, 23rd June, 1596. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Anne Fletcher's house was sold in July 1596. She was committed to the care of the church. The new owners reported no disturbances. Anne never slept again, according to church records. She passed in August of that year. End of file. Case file: NOA1671T. Classification: Village record. Date of statement: 12 September 1671. Location: I am Derbyshire Village. Record of Thomas Greenwood. Clerk 1, Thomas Greenwood, Village Clerk of I am. Do record the matter of the ringing bells. Our church bell has rung each night at 3 o'clock for 2 weeks. The bell tower is locked. Only Reverend Stanley holds the key. He swears he does not ring it. The first night, we thought a prankster had found entry. Reverend Stanley and I examined the tower at dawn. The door remained locked. No windows were broken. No other entry existed. The rope hung still and untouched. Yet that night, at 3 o'clock, the bell rang again. 7 clear strikes. The entire village heard it. Reverend Stanley and I ran to the church. We arrived within moments of the final strike. The tower door was still locked. We opened it immediately and climbed the stairs. No one was there. The rope swayed slightly, as if just released, but the tower was empty. We remained there until dawn. At 3 o'clock the next night, we were both inside the tower. We sat in silence, watching the rope. As the church clock struck 3, the rope moved. It jerked downward 7 times. The bell rang 7 times. No hand touched the rope. No wind blew through the sealed tower. The rope moved by itself, pulled by nothing we could see. Reverend Stanley attempted to hold the rope still. He gripped it tightly as 3 o'clock approached. The rope moved anyway. It pulled through, his hands with such force it burned his palms. The bell rang its 7 strikes. We have tried cutting the rope. Each morning we find it restored, whole and unmarked, hanging as it always has. Several men of the village have tried to stop the ringing. All have failed. The bell rings at 3 o'clock. 7 strikes, every night. Reverend Stanley searched church records. He found a burial entry from 100 years ago. A bell ringer named William Cross. He fell from the tower while ringing the bells. He died instantly. The entry notes he fell at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The bells had rung 7 times before he fell, the last thing he ever rang. Reverend Stanley believes William has returned, completing his final duty each night. Unable to stop, unable to rest. We have tried prayers. We have tried blessing the bell. Nothing changes. The ringing continues. Thomas Greenwood, Village Clerk E.M., Derbyshire, 12 September 1671. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The bells of I Am Church continued ringing at 3 o'clock until 1689, when the tower was destroyed by fire. The current tower, rebuilt in 1691, houses new bells. They have never rung without human hands. End of file. Case file: NOA1742B. Classification: Asylum record. Date of statement: 8th February 1742. Location: St. Luke's Hospital for Lunatics. London medical record of Dr. Samuel Wickham First. Dr. Samuel Wickham, physician at St. Luke's Hospital. Do record the case of the patient known only as Jane. She was admitted 6 months ago by her family. She speaks continuously, never sleeping, never resting. an endless stream of words. At first, we believed her mad with fever, but her words are not random ravings. She describes places she has never visited, houses she has never entered, people she has never met, with perfect accuracy. She described Lord Ashby's country house in Devon. Every room, every painting, every piece of furniture. Lord Ashby confirmed her descriptions were exact. She has never left London. She described a murder in Bristol, a merchant killed by his brother. Details known only to the constable. She spoke of it the night it occurred, 50 miles away. She describes what is happening now, in this moment, in places across England, a fire in a cottage in Cornwall, a birth in Manchester, a burial in York. She sees it all. She speaks it all, without pause, without rest. We tried to make her sleep. Sleeping draughts have no effect. Her eyes remain open. Her mouth continues moving, forming words, describing distant events. Last week, she spoke of something different, something that has not yet occurred. She described this hospital burning, every detail, the flames starting in the east wing, spreading to the main hall, patients screaming, doctors fleeing. She described which rooms would burn first, which patients would perish. She spoke their names. Patients currently in my care. She described my own actions during the fire, how I would try to save the records, how I would fail, how the smoke would take me before the flames. Yesterday, she began counting, backwards, from 100. She reached 73 today. I asked what happens when she reaches 0. She smiled. The first emotion she has shown since arriving. You will see, she said. Then she continued counting. 72, 71, 70. Her voice never stops, never falters. She counts constantly. I have written to the hospital board. I have recommended immediate evacuation. They believe I have become affected by the patient's madness. They refuse to act on the ravings of a lunatic. Jane has reached 64. I cannot leave my other patients. But I watch the east wing. I smell the air for smoke. Jane counts backward, toward 0, toward fire. Dr. Samuel Wickham, physician, St. Luke's Hospital for Lunatics, London, 8th February. February 1742. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. St. Luke's Hospital burned on the 15th of February 1742. 23 patients and 4 staff perished. Fire investigators determined the blaze began in the east wing. Dr. Wickham's body was found in the records room. No trace of patient Jane was ever recovered. End of file. Case file NOA 1559C. Classification Mariner's log. Date of statement 17th July 1559. Location off the coast of Cornwall. Ship's log of Captain Edmund Hart I. Captain Edmund Hart of the merchant vessel Prosperity. Do record the events of the 14th day of July. We sailed along the Cornish coast in clear weather. The sea was calm, the wind favourable. At dusk, the lookout reported a ship ahead, a vessel of old design, sails tattered and grey. We approached cautiously. As we drew near, we saw no crew on deck. No lights burned. No flag flew. The ship drifted without purpose. I hailed the vessel repeatedly. No answer came. I ordered my men to bring us alongside. We would board and investigate. 6 of my crew crossed to the silent ship. I watched from the deck of the Prosperity. My men searched the vessel. They called back that no one was aboard. The ship was empty. No crew, no cargo, no provisions, only empty space below decks. But the ship's log lay open in the captain's cabin. My first mate, Robert Dale, read the final entry. It was dated the 14th of July. The year was 1508. 51 years ago. The entry was brief. They have taken everyone but me. I hear them below. I am the last. Nothing more was written. Robert searched the cabin thoroughly. He found chains fixed to the walls. Old chains, rusted and stained. He found scratches on the wooden floor. Deep gouges, as if something had been dragged. He found teeth, human teeth scattered in a corner. No bodies, no bones, just teeth. Robert shouted for the men to return to the Prosperity. They ran across the boarding planks. All except young Thomas Webb. He had gone below to search the hold. We called for him. His voice came up through the hatch. "There are more ships down here." We did not understand. How could ships be below deck? Thomas climbed up from the hold. His face was white as chalk. "The walls below are painted," he said. "Painted with ships, hundreds of ships, in perfect detail." We pulled him across to the Prosperity. I ordered the boarding planks withdrawn. As we pushed away from the silent vessel, Thomas grabbed my arm. "Captain," he said, "I saw our ship, painted on the wall, the Prosperity, perfect in every detail." I looked at the drifting ship. In the fading light, I saw movement below deck, shadows passing the hatches, but we had found no one aboard. We sailed away rapidly. That night, Thomas vanished from his hammock. We searched the entire ship. He was nowhere to be found. At dawn, Robert went to my cabin. On my desk lay the logbook of the empty ship. We had not brought it aboard. We had left it on the vessel. Robert opened it to the last page. A new entry had been written, in fresh ink. I am not the last anymore. Captain Edmund Hart, off the coast of Cornwall, 17th July 1559. Archive note, Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The Prosperity returned to Plymouth with 5 crew missing, including Captain Hart. Ship found drifting a week later. No crew aboard. The vessel's own log ended with the same entry as the ghost ship's. Maritime records show similar disappearances occurring along the Cornish coast for 3 centuries. End of file. Case file NOA 16988F. Classification: Schoolmaster's account. Date of statement: 3rd March 1698. Location: Ludlow, Shropshire. Account of Henry Morrison, Schoolmaster Y. Henry Morrison, Schoolmaster of Ludlow Grammar School. Do provide account of the incident in my classroom. I teach 30 boys aged 8 to 12 years. On the 28th of February, during afternoon lessons, one boy began to laugh. Peter Ashton, age 9. His laughter was inappropriate during Latin recitation. I asked him to stop. He continued laughing. I asked again, more sternly. The laughter grew louder. Other boys turned to stare at him. Peter's laughter changed. It became shriller, higher pitched, not his natural voice. I approached his desk. His eyes were closed, his head tilted back. The laughter poured from his mouth, but his expression showed no mirth. I shook his shoulder. He did not respond. The laughter continued. Other boys began to join in. First one, then another, then 5 more, all laughing with the same shrill, wrong sound, all with closed eyes, all with expressionless faces. I commanded silence. None obeyed. 10 boys now laughed together. The sound filled the room, sharp and painful to hear. I ran to fetch the headmaster. When we returned, 20 boys were laughing, all in that terrible high voice. Only 10 remained normal, pressed against the far wall in fear. The headmaster rang the school bell. Other masters arrived. Together, we tried to wake the laughing children. We shook them. We shouted their names. We threw water on their faces. Nothing stopped the laughter. It continued for 3 hours. Then, suddenly, every boy fell silent simultaneously. All opened their eyes. None remembered laughing. They recalled beginning the Latin lesson. Then nothing until they woke on the classroom floor. All complained of sore throats. Their voices were hoarse. I examined the Latin text we had been reading. It was Ovid's Metamorphoses. The passage described people transformed against their will. Bodies changing, voices lost. I do not know if this is relevant. But the next day, Peter Ashton did not attend school. His mother sent word he had taken ill. That evening, I visited their home. Peter sat in his room staring at the wall. His mother said he had not spoken since leaving school. He had not eaten. He had not moved. He only sat. And occasionally, she said, he laughed. That same shrill, wrong laugh. For just a moment. Then silence again. I spoke to him gently. He did not acknowledge me. I said his name. He turned his head slowly. He looked at me with empty eyes. Then he smiled. And in a voice not his own, he spoke. Magister, nos mutamur. Teacher, we are being changed. Henry Morrison, Schoolmaster, Ludlow, Shropshire. 3rd March, 1698. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft, school records show 20 students were withdrawn by their families in March 1698. All had participated in the laughing incident. Peter Ashton recovered his speech after 6 weeks. He reported no memory of the Latin phrase or how he knew those words. End of file. Case file. NOA1756N. Classification. Manor House Record. Date of statement. 29th October, 1756. Location. Holcombe Manor, Gloucestershire. Record of Eleanor Wright, housekeeper Eleanor Wright, housekeeper of Holcombe Manor. Do record the events of the past month. It began when Lady Holcombe ordered the old portrait moved. The painting had hung in the East Gallery for 100 years. It showed a man in Tudor dress, dark clothes, severe expression, no name on the frame, no record of who he was. Lady Holcombe disliked the painting. She ordered it removed to the attic. 4 footmen carried it up. That night, we heard footsteps in the gallery. Heavy footsteps, back and forth. Pacing, I investigated with 2 maids. The gallery was empty. The footsteps continued above our heads, coming from the attic. We did not go up. The next morning, the portrait was back in the gallery, hanging in its original place. The footmen swore they had left it in the attic. The nails and wire showed no disturbance. Lady Holcombe was displeased. She ordered the portrait removed again. This time, she instructed the footman to take it far from the house, to burn it in the garden. They built a fire in the afternoon. I watched them place the portrait upon the flames. The canvas caught quickly. The paint bubbled and blackened. The man's face seemed to contort in the fire. Then came a sound, like a scream, but not from any living throat. The fire exploded. Footmen were thrown backward. The portrait remained, unburned, perfect, lying on the scorched grass, not a mark upon it. The men refused to touch it again. It was returned to the gallery. That night, the footsteps resumed, louder than before, faster, angry, and there was more. Doors slammed throughout the house. Windows rattled in their frames. Cold air swept through corridors. In the morning, we found the portrait moved again. No longer in the gallery. It hung in Lady Holcomb's bedchamber, on the wall facing her bed. The door to her room had been locked from inside. Lady Holcomb had not heard it placed there. She had slept while someone, or something, entered her room, hung the portrait, and departed. She has taken to sleeping in the guest quarters, but each morning the portrait appears in whatever room she occupies, always facing her bed, always watching. Last night, Lady Holcomb examined the portrait closely. She noticed something she had not seen before. In the background of the painting, barely visible behind the Tudor gentleman, a house, our house, Holcomb Manor, painted in perfect detail, down to the east gallery window, where the portrait hangs. Lady Holcomb has left. She refuses to return. The portrait remains in the gallery. I pass it twice daily in my duties. Each time, I feel it watching me, and I swear the man's expression changes. Sometimes stern, sometimes pleased, sometimes smiling. Eleanor Wright, housekeeper, Holcomb Manor, Gloucestershire, 29th October, 1756. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft, Holcomb Manor, was sold in 1757. The portrait was destroyed during renovations in 1802. Workers reported the canvas screamed when cut. The sound was heard throughout the village. The East Gallery collapsed 3 days later. No structural cause was ever determined. End of file. Case file NOA 1615V. Classification. Constable's statement. Date of statement 11th April 1615. Location Alnwick, Northumberland. Statement of Constable William Pearson vs. William Pearson, Constable of Alnwick. Do provide statement regarding the disturbance at the crossroads. For 3 weeks, travellers have reported seeing a woman at the crossroads north of town. She appears only at night. She stands at the centre where the 4 roads meet. She wears white. Her hair hangs loose about her shoulders. She does not move when approached. She simply stands. Several travellers have stopped to offer assistance. They assume she is lost or injured. When they draw near, she turns to face them. All report the same thing. Her face is wrong. The features shift and blur. One moment young, the next moment old. One moment beautiful, the next moment terrible. Her expression changes rapidly. Joy, sorrow, rage, terror, cycling through emotions too quickly to follow. Those who have seen her describe feeling unable to move. Their legs would not obey. They could only stand and watch as her face changed. Then she speaks, always the same words. Which road did he take? She asks this of every traveller. No one knows who he is, no one knows how to answer. If they do not respond, she grows agitated. Her voice rises. Which road did he take? Louder and more desperate, until she is screaming the question. Then she vanishes, simply disappears, leaving travellers standing alone at the crossroads. Last night, I went to investigate. I arrived at the crossroads at midnight. I waited 2 hours. She appeared suddenly. One moment the crossroads were empty. The next, she stood in the centre. I called out, identifying myself as Constable. She turned toward me. I saw her face change. Young to old, beautiful to hideous, happy to despairing. A dozen faces in moments. I asked what she sought. She approached me rapidly, too rapidly, gliding rather than walking. Which road did he take? She asked. Her voice was hollow, echoing strangely. I asked who she sought. My husband, she said. He left at dawn. He did not say which road. He did not say goodbye. I asked when he left. This morning, she said. But something in her voice suggested longer, much longer. I asked how long she had waited. She stopped advancing. Her face ceased changing. It settled into an expression of absolute grief. I do not remember, she said softly. I have been here so long, waiting. He said he would return by evening. I waited. He did not come. I have waited every night since. I must find which road he took. Then I can follow. Then I can rest. I asked her name. She opened her mouth to answer. Then she screamed, a sound of pure anguish. She vanished. I have searched records. A woman named Catherine Bright disappeared from Alnwick in the year 1500. She waited for her husband to return from Newcastle. He never came. She was last seen at the crossroads. That was 115 years ago. William Pearson, Constable, Alnwick, Northumberland, 11th April 1615. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The woman at the crossroads has been reported continuously for 4 centuries. Witnesses provide consistent descriptions. Modern researchers note the crossroads have been unchanged since medieval times. No roads have been closed or rerouted. Catherine Bright still waits for an answer. End of file. Case file. NOA 1737Q. Classification. Merchant's record. Date of statement. 6th May, 1737. Location. Newcastle upon Tyne, Northumberland. Record of James Hartley, merchant wear, James Hartley, cloth merchant of Newcastle. Do record what occurred in my shop. My establishment sits on Grey Street, a narrow building, 3 stories tall. I live on the upper floors. My shop occupies the ground level. For 10 years, I have worked here without incident. That changed last month. I began finding my merchandise disturbed. Bolts of cloth pulled from shelves, fabric unrolled across the floor, scissors moved from their proper places. At first, I blamed my apprentice. Young Robert swore he was not responsible. I did not believe him. I dismissed him from my service. The disturbances continued. Worse than before. Entire shelves emptied overnight. Cloth cut into pieces. No pattern to the cuts. Random destruction. I installed better locks. I checked them each evening. Each morning, I found chaos within. The locks remained secure. The windows unbroken. No entry visible. Yet destruction awaited. I began sleeping in the shop. To catch whoever did this. The first night, I heard nothing. But in the morning, cloth lay scattered. The second night, I forced myself to stay awake. At 2 o'clock, I heard movement. Soft sounds from the back room. Fabric being pulled. Scissors opening and closing. I lit a candle and investigated. The back room was empty, but cloth continued to fall from the shelves, folding and unfolding by itself. I watched, unable to move, unable to breathe. The scissors lifted from the table. They opened. They moved through the air, cutting cloth precisely, making patterns I did not recognize. I found my voice and shouted. Everything fell. The scissors clattered to the floor. The cloth lay still. I searched every corner. No one was there. The next day, I consulted a priest. Father Michael came to bless the shop. As he spoke the prayers, the scissors began to move. They rose from the table and hung in the air. Father Michael's voice faltered. The scissors opened and closed, opening and closing, like a mouth trying to speak. Father Michael fled. I remain in the shop alone now. I watch the scissors move each night, creating patterns in cloth, always the same patterns. Shapes I am beginning to recognize. Letters, words forming slowly, over weeks of cutting. Last night, I saw what they spell. One word, repeated in every scrap of cloth, cut carefully, deliberately. Trapped. James Hartley, Merchant, Newcastle upon Tyne, Northumberland. 6th May, 1737. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Records show a seamstress named Mary Todd worked in this building 50 years prior. She died when her dress caught in machinery. The building's previous owner mentioned unusual sounds, but never investigated. Hartley sold the property in June 1737. End of file. Case file. NOA 1542S classification. Curates. Journal date of statement. 18 September 1542. Location, St. Mary's Church, Rye, East Sussex. Journal entry of Curate Thomas Marsh for Thomas Marsh, Curate of St. Mary's. Do record the events in our crypt. Father Benedict ordered the crypt opened last week. We required space for new burials. The crypt had been sealed for 80 years. No one remembered why. 4 men broke the seal. The door swung open. Cold air rushed out, air that smelled of earth and age. We descended with torches. The crypt was larger than expected. 20 burial niches lined the walls, all occupied. At the far end stood a stone coffin. No inscription upon it. No indication of who lay within. Father Benedict ordered it opened. The men hesitated. Something felt wrong about that unmarked coffin, but orders were given. They lifted the heavy lid. Inside lay a body, perfectly preserved. A man in priest's vestments, his hands crossed over his chest, his face peaceful. But he should have been bones. He should have been dust. Yet he looked as if he slept. Father Benedict leaned closer to examine him. The corpse's eyes opened. Father Benedict screamed and stumbled backward. The body did not move. The eyes simply stared at the ceiling. Then the mouth opened. Words came out, Latin words, a prayer, but spoken backwards, every phrase reversed. Father Benedict recognized it. The funeral mass, being recited in reverse, as if unwinding, as if undoing. We fled the crypt. The men sealed the door, but we hear it still. The voice continues below, speaking that reverse prayer, day and night without ceasing. It echoes through the church floor. Worshippers hear it during services. The dead priest's voice, rising from below, unwinding his own burial. Father Benedict has written to the bishop. We await instruction, but the prayer continues, backward, endless. Last night, I dreamed I was in the crypt. The coffin stood open, empty. The priest stood beside me. He turned to face me. His mouth moved, speaking that reverse prayer. But now I understood the words. He was not unwinding his burial. He was undoing his death. Thomas Marsh, Curate St. Mary's Church, Rye, East Sussex, 18 September 1542. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. St. Mary's crypt was permanently sealed in October 1542. The bishop ordered holy symbols carved into the door. The reverse prayer could be heard until 1547, when it suddenly ceased. The crypt has never been reopened. Ground-penetrating surveys in 1987 revealed the stone coffin lid has been moved aside. End of file. Case file NOA1689G. Classification: Prison Warden's Report. Date of statement: 27th November 1689. Location: Lancaster Castle Prison, Lancashire. Report of Warden Jacob Mills, Archivist Jacob Mills. Warden of Lancaster Castle Prison. Do report the disturbance in cell 14. No prisoner has remained there longer than one night. All requests transfer immediately. They speak of a presence in the cell, something that watches them. I dismiss these claims as prisoner invention. Attempts to secure better accommodation. Last week, I decided to investigate personally. I spent the night in cell 14. The cell is small and cold. Stone walls on 3 sides. Iron bars on the 4th. A single narrow window high above. I brought a lantern and settled on the wooden bench. For 2 hours, nothing occurred. I began to think the prisoners had lied. Then the temperature dropped. My breath became visible in the cold air. The lantern flame shrank to a small point. I heard breathing, not my own. Someone else breathed in the cell with me, deep, ragged breaths, coming from the corner to my left. I raised the lantern. The corner was empty, but the breathing continued, closer now, moving around the cell. I stood and backed against the bars. The breathing circled me. I felt cold air pass my face, as if someone walked by me. Then I felt a weight on the bench. The wood creaked, as if someone sat down. I looked at the bench. It bore the impression of a seated figure. The wood compressed in the shape of a person, but nothing was visible. I called for the guard. No one answered. I shouted louder. Still no response. The breathing grew louder. Multiple sources now. 3 or 4 distinct patterns. All around me. I pressed myself against the bars. Something touched my shoulder. A hand. I felt fingers grip my coat. Cold fingers. Strong. I pulled away and ran to the far corner. The breathing followed. I remained there until dawn. Never turning my back to the cell, never closing my eyes. When morning came, the guard found me. He said he had been at his post all night. He heard no shouting, no calls for help. I searched the prison records. Cell 14 has held 140 prisoners. 32 died within its walls, most by hanging in the yard, but 7 died in the cell itself. 4 by their own hand, 3 by violence from other prisoners. All 7 refused to leave the cell when ordered. They claimed something held them there. Something would not let them go. I have ordered cell 14 sealed. No prisoner shall be placed there again. But at night, I still hear it. The breathing, coming from behind the sealed door. Jacob Mills, Warden Lancaster Castle Prison, Lancashire, 27th November 1689. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft's cell 14 remained sealed until the prison's closure in 1868. Every warden reported hearing breathing from within. Modern paranormal investigators recorded unusual audio phenomena in 1994. The recordings captured what sounds like 7 distinct voices breathing simultaneously. End of file. Case file NOA1573M classification. Lighthouse Keeper's Log. Date of statement 4th January 1573. Location Longstone Lighthouse, Farne Islands, Northumberland. Log entry of Keeper William Darrow first says, William Darrow, Keeper of Longstone Light. Do record the events of New Year's Eve. I maintain this lighthouse alone. My wife visits twice monthly when weather permits. Otherwise, I am solitary. The isolation has never troubled me, until 3 nights ago. I was trimming the lamp at midnight. I heard knocking on the door below. 3 sharp knocks. I descended immediately. No ship was in distress. No boat approached the rocks. Yet someone knocked. I opened the door. No one stood there. The night was clear. I could see the rocks clearly in the moonlight. Nothing. No one. I returned to the lamp room. The knocking came again, 3 times, louder than before. I descended once more. Again, no one was there. This pattern continued throughout the night. Every hour, 3 knocks. Each time I descended. Each time I found nothing. At dawn, the knocking ceased. The next night, it began again at midnight. 3 knocks. I did not descend. I remained in the lamp room. The knocking grew louder, more insistent. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs, heavy boots climbing toward me. I called out, asking who approached. No answer came. The footsteps continued, slow and deliberate. I stood at the top of the stairs. The footsteps reached the landing below. I heard them clearly. Boot heels on stone, coming closer. I lit every lamp I possessed. The footsteps climbed higher, almost to my level. I braced myself, ready to confront whoever climbed. The footsteps reached the final stair. Nothing appeared. The stairway was empty, but I heard breathing, right before me, where someone should stand. I reached forward. My hand passed through cold air, colder than winter wind. The breathing moved past me, into the lamp room. I heard footsteps circle the lamp, once, twice, 3 times. Then they descended the stairs, growing fainter, reaching the door. I heard the door open, then close, then silence. I searched the entire lighthouse, every room, every corner, nothing. But at midnight tonight, 3 knocks came again. I know what will follow. The footsteps, the breathing, the circling of the lamp. I have written to the lighthouse board. I cannot maintain this station alone, not with whatever shares this light with me. William Darrow, Keeper Longstone Lighthouse, Farne Islands, Northumberland, 4th January, 1573. Archive note, Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. William Darrow abandoned his post in February 1573. His replacement, Thomas Gray, reported identical experiences and left after 1 month. The lighthouse required 3 keepers simultaneously until automation in 1826. All reported hearing the footsteps climbing to circle the lamp 3 times nightly. End of file. Case file. NOA 1716T. Classification. Hospital matron's account. Date of statement. 12th March, 1716. Location. St. Thomas's Hospital, London. Account of matron Elizabeth Hartwell. Elizabeth Hartwell, matron of St. Thomas's Hospital. Do provide account of events in Ward 7. The ward contains 20 beds, all occupied by patients with various ailments. 3 weeks ago, patients began reporting disturbances. A woman walking between the beds at night. She wore the dress of a nurse, but no nurse worked the night shift in Ward 7. I dismiss these claims. Patients often see things in fever. Then nurses began reporting the same sighting. A woman in nurse's dress, walking the ward, checking each patient. When approached, she vanishes, simply disappears. I decided to observe Ward 7 myself. I sat in the corner for 3 nights. On the 3rd night, I saw her. She appeared at the far end of the ward, near the first bed. She moved silently between the beds, stopping at each one, leaning over patients as if checking their condition. Her movements were practiced, professional, the movements of an experienced nurse. I stood and walked toward her. She did not acknowledge me. She continued her rounds. I came within 10 paces. I could see her clearly now. Her dress was old-fashioned, from 50 years ago at least. Her face was pale, her expression blank. I called out to her. She turned to face me. I saw her eyes. They were empty, not blind, simply empty. No thought behind them, no recognition. She looked through me rather than at me. Then she continued walking, moving to the next bed. I reached out to touch her shoulder. My hand passed through her body, as if she were mist. She felt like cold air, nothing more. She completed her rounds of the ward, checking every patient. When she reached the final bed, she stopped. She stood at its foot for a long moment. Then she lay down upon the empty bed. She folded her hands across her chest. She closed her eyes and vanished. I examined the bed immediately. The sheets were cold to touch, ice cold, as if a frozen body had lain there. I searched hospital records the next day. A nurse named Catherine Price worked in this ward 60 years ago. She died of plague while tending patients. She collapsed beside the final bed in the ward, the same bed where I saw the figure lie down. Her last words were recorded. I must finish my rounds. Every night since, nurses report seeing her, walking the ward, checking each patient, completing the rounds she never finished. Elizabeth Hartwell, Matron St. Thomas's Hospital, London, 12th March, 1716 archive. Note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Catherine Price's apparition has been reported for 3 centuries. Staff describe identical behavior patterns. Ward 7 was renovated in 1892, but sightings continued. Modern nurses still report a woman in old-fashioned uniform checking patients during night shifts. End of file. Case file NOA 1634L. Classification: Mine Overseer's Record. Date of statement: 8th July 1634. Location: Ecton Copper Mine, Staffordshire. Record of Overseer Richard Blackstone. Richard Blackstone, Overseer of Ecton Mine. Do record the loss of 3 miners. They descended to the deepest level yesterday morning. A new tunnel had been opened there, extending further into the earth. The men were to explore and mark where to dig next. They did not return by evening. I took 6 men down to search for them. We followed the main shaft to the lowest level. The air was cold there, much colder than normal. Our breaths formed clouds. We called out for the missing men. No answer came. We entered the new tunnel. Our lamps showed rough-cut walls. The tunnel extended 200 paces into the rock. At the end, we found the miners' tools. Picks and shovels laid neatly against the wall, but no miners. We searched for exits. Other tunnels branching from this one. We found none. The tunnel ended in solid rock. No openings, no crevices large enough for a man. Yet 3 men had vanished. We returned to the tunnel entrance. One of my men noticed marks on the floor. Drag marks, as if heavy objects had been pulled along the ground. We followed the marks deeper into the tunnel. They led to the rock wall at the end and disappeared into the solid stone, as if the men had been dragged through the wall itself. I placed my hand against the rock. It was ice cold, cold enough to burn my palm. I pulled back quickly. Then I heard it. A sound from behind the wall. Scratching, like fingernails on stone. Frantic scratching. I pressed my ear to the rock. I heard voices, muffled and distant. Men calling for help. The missing miners, trapped somehow behind solid rock. We brought hammers and chisels. We worked for 6 hours. Breaking through the rock face. When we finally broke through, we found nothing. Empty space beyond. An old, abandoned tunnel, sealed up decades ago. No one inside. But the scratching continued, all around us now, coming from the walls, the ceiling, the floor, everywhere at once. We fled back to the surface. I have sealed the new tunnel. No man will work there again, but we still hear them. The missing miners, scratching at the rock, trying to break through, trying to return. Richard Blackstone, Overseer Ecton Copper Mine, Staffordshire, 8th July 1634. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The 3 miners were never found. The tunnel was permanently sealed. Mining records from 1634 to 1780 mention persistent, scratching sounds from behind the sealed entrance. The mine closed in 1891. Modern cave explorers report hearing scratching sounds in the deepest levels. End of file. Case file. NOA 1528P. Classification. Village Vicar's testimony. Date of statement. 21st May, 1528. Location. Pluckley, Kent. Testimony of Vicar Edmund Howell verse. Edmund Howell, Vicar of Pluckley. Do testify about the woman seen on the old Roman road. For 6 months, travellers have reported seeing her. Always at the same location. 1 mile north of the village, where the road crosses Pinnock Bridge. She stands at the centre of the bridge, dressed in white, her face covered by a veil. She does not move when travellers approach. She simply stands, blocking the road. Those who have seen her describe a terrible cold. As they draw near, the temperature drops. Their horses refuse to advance. The animals rear and cry out, terrified of something unseen. Travellers must dismount and lead their horses around, through the stream below. The woman watches them pass, never moving, never speaking. I went to investigate 3 days ago. I arrived at the bridge at dusk. I waited 1 hour. As darkness fell, she appeared. One moment, the bridge was empty. The next, she stood at its centre. I approached on foot. I called out, offering assistance. She did not respond. I came within 20 paces. The cold struck me like a physical blow. I could see my breath in clouds. My fingers grew numb. I continued forward. I asked who she was, why she stood there. She raised one hand slowly. She pointed at the stream below. I looked where she indicated. I saw nothing unusual, just water flowing over stones. I looked back at her. She had moved closer, much closer. She now stood 10 paces away. I had not seen her move. She pointed again at the stream. More insistently, I stepped to the bridge's edge and looked down. In the shallow water, I saw bones. White bones among the stones. Human bones. A skeleton lay in the streambed, partially buried in mud. The skull visible. The arms spread wide. I looked back at the woman. She stood directly before me now, so close I could have touched her. She raised her hands to her veil. I wanted to look away. Something told me I should not see her face, but I could not move. She lifted the veil slowly. Beneath it was nothing. No face. Only shadow. Darkness where features should be. She leaned toward me. That empty space coming closer. I found my voice and prayed aloud. She vanished instantly. I ran back to the village. I returned the next morning with 6 men. We recovered the skeleton from the stream. It was a woman, dead for many years. How she came to be there, we do not know. We gave her proper burial in the churchyard. We prayed for her soul. That night, I returned to the bridge. I hoped she would be at rest. The bridge was empty. She has not been seen since. Edmund Howell, Vicar Pluckley, Kent, 21st May, 1528. Archive note, Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The woman reappeared in 1530, 2 years after the burial. She has been seen continuously for 5 centuries. The burial was disturbed during bridge repairs in 1643. Workers found the grave empty. The bones were never recovered. She still stands at Pinnock Bridge. End of file. Case file NOA 1747R. Classification University Professor's Notes. Date of statement 16th October 1747. Location Oxford University, Oxfordshire. Notes of Professor Jonathan Blackwell. First, Professor Jonathan Blackwell of Christ Church College. Do record the incident in the library. I was researching late into the night. The library was empty, save for myself. The clock struck 2. I heard pages turning, somewhere in the stacks behind me. I called out, thinking another scholar remained. No answer came. The turning of pages continued, steady and rhythmic. 1 page every few seconds. I rose and walked toward the sound. It came from the history section, rows of old books on medieval England. I rounded the corner. No one was there, but a book lay open on a reading table. The pages turned by themselves, one after another, slowly and deliberately, as if someone read them. I approached the table. The book was a chronicle from the 13th century, written in Latin. The pages continued turning. I reached out to stop them. My hand froze inches from the book. I could not move it further. Something prevented me, an invisible barrier, as solid as glass. I pulled my hand back. The pages continued turning. I circled the table. From every angle, I felt the same resistance, a space around the book that could not be entered. The pages reached the final chapter. The turning slowed, as if the reader grew interested, then stopped on a single page. I read the visible text. It described a scholar named Brother Thomas. He died in this very library 400 years ago, struck down while reading. A sudden sickness of the heart. He died at his desk, his book still open before him. The chronicle noted he had been researching the reign of King John. He never completed his work. I looked at the page where the turning had stopped. It was the same period, the same subject Brother Thomas had studied. I spoke aloud. I said his name. The book's pages began turning backward, rapidly now, flipping in reverse, returning to the beginning. Then they stopped. The book snapped shut. It rose from the table. It floated in the air, drifting toward the shelves. It returned itself to its proper place, sliding into the gap between other volumes. I heard footsteps then, walking through the stacks, moving away from me, growing fainter, disappearing into the depths of the library. I have returned to the library every night this week. At 2 o'clock, I hear the same sounds. Pages, turning, footsteps in the stacks. Always the same book is found open. Always the same page about Brother Thomas. He continues his research. 4 centuries after death. Jonathan Blackwell, Professor, Christ Church College, Oxford 16th. October 1747. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The chronicle has been moved to different locations within the library. It continues to appear on reading tables at 2 o'clock. Library staff report finding it open to the same page. Brother Thomas's original notes were discovered in 1823. They match exactly the pages where the book stops turning. End of file. Case file. NOA 1659B. Classification. Theatre manager's statement. Date of statement, 3rd February, 1659. Location, the Globe Playhouse, London. Statement of Thomas Wright. Theatre manager R. Thomas Wright, manager of the Globe. Do provide statement about the figure in the gallery. Our players have seen him many times. During rehearsals when the theatre is otherwise empty. A man sits in the upper gallery, watching the stage. When anyone looks directly at him, he vanishes, only to reappear moments later in a different seat. Our lead player, John Marshall, refuses to rehearse alone now. He claims the figure moves closer each time, descending from the gallery to lower levels. Last week, I remained after a performance. I waited in the empty theatre. The candles burned low. Shadows filled the galleries. At midnight, I saw him. A man in old-fashioned dress, sitting in the uppermost gallery, his face in shadow, his attention fixed on the stage. I called out to him. He did not respond. I climbed the stairs to the gallery. Each step brought me closer. I reached the upper level. He sat 3 rows from where I stood, still watching the stage below. I walked toward him. He remained motionless. I came within 1 row. He turned his head toward me. I stopped. I could not see his face. Though lamplight fell upon him, his features remained dark, as if shadow clung to him. He raised 1 hand. He pointed at the stage. I looked where he indicated. On the empty stage below, I saw movement. Figures walked there, actors performing. But the theatre was empty. No one should be there. I watched in amazement. A full performance unfolded. Players spoke their lines, moved through their positions. But no sound reached me. Silent actors in a silent play. I recognized some of them. Men who had played upon our stage. Men now dead for years. I looked back at the figure beside me. He watched the performance with intense focus. His hand moved slightly, gesturing as if conducting, guiding the silent actors below. I realized then who he must be. I spoke a name. Master Fletcher? Richard Fletcher had managed this theatre 30 years ago. He died while watching a performance, struck down in his seat, the very seat where this figure sat. The figure turned toward me at the mention of the name. This time I saw his face, or rather, the absence of it. His features shifted and changed. One moment young, the next ancient, never settling, never solid. He stood slowly. He walked past me. His shoulder passed through mine. I felt intense cold. My breath caught. He descended the stairs to the stage. He joined the silent actors there, taking a place among them. They continued their performance, and he watched from the stage, as he had watched from the gallery. At dawn, they faded, all of them, becoming transparent, then gone. But tonight, he will return, to watch again. Thomas Wright, manager, the Globe Playhouse, London, 3rd February 1659. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The Globe burned down in 1613. Rebuilt in 1614, it operated until 1642. Richard Fletcher's figure has been reported in every theatre built on this site. Modern actors describe identical experiences. The silent performance always occurs at midnight. End of file. Case file NOA1545H. Classification: Apothecary's record. Date of statement: 19th August 1545. Location: Canterbury, Kent. Record of Apothecary William Gray were: William Gray, Apothecary of Canterbury, do record the matter of the crying child. A woman brought her son to my shop 2 weeks past. The boy was 7 years old. He wept continuously, without pause, without relief. He had been crying for 5 days. His mother said the tears never stopped. Not to eat, not to sleep, not even to draw breath properly. He simply cried, tears streaming down his face, his voice hoarse from constant weeping. I examined the child thoroughly. I found no injury, no illness, no pain that might cause such distress. Yet he continued crying. I asked the mother when it began. She said they had visited an old church, St. Martin's, outside the city walls. The boy had wandered into the crypt. When she found him, he was standing before an ancient tomb, weeping. He had not stopped since. I questioned the boy. Between sobs, he told me what he saw. A woman in the crypt, kneeling beside the tomb, crying, her face buried in her hands. She had looked up at him. Her face was wet with tears. She reached toward him. She touched his chest. He felt overwhelming sadness, grief beyond any child's experience, as if every sorrow in the world entered him at once. Since that moment, he cannot stop crying. I prepared draughts to calm him. Nothing worked. The weeping continued. I consulted with a priest. Father Michael came to examine the boy. He prayed over him, blessed him with holy water. The boy continued crying. Father Michael suggested we visit the crypt to see what the boy had seen. We went to St. Martin's yesterday. The three of us descended into the crypt. The boy led us to the tomb. It was old, medieval, the inscription worn almost smooth. I could barely read the name. Lady Catherine Marsh, died in the year of our Lord 1203. The boy pointed at the floor beside the tomb. She kneels there, he said between sobs. She's still crying. I saw nothing. Father Michael saw nothing. But the boy stared at the empty space, tears flowing faster. He reached out his hand. I want to help her, he said, but she will not stop. Her child is in the tomb. She grieves for her child. She cannot stop grieving. Father Michael examined the tomb more closely. He found smaller text beneath the woman's name. And her son Thomas, aged 7 years. May they rest together in God's peace. The boy was the same age as the dead child. We led him from the crypt, but the crying continues, day and night. The mother has taken him home. She writes that he stands often beside his own bed, staring at nothing, crying, as if he sees someone there, someone only he can see, someone who weeps eternally. William Gray, Apothecary, Canterbury, Kent, 19th August, 1545. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft, Parish Records, confirm Lady Catherine Marsh died in 1203, 1 day after her son Thomas. Both were buried together. The crypt was sealed in 1547. The boy recovered his ability to stop crying after 1 month. However, his mother reported he would sometimes wake at night, weeping, saying he heard a woman crying. End of file. Case file NOA1723. Classification: Ship Captain's Log. Date of statement: 11th June 1723. Location: at sea, English Channel. Log of Captain Henry Bolton I, Henry Bolton, captain of the merchant ship Steadfast. Do record the events of the 9th of June. We sailed from Portsmouth, bound for France. The weather was clear, the sea calm. At sunset, my lookout reported debris ahead. We approached carefully. Wreckage floated on the water, pieces of a destroyed vessel. We searched for survivors. We found none, but we found something else. A sea chest, floating among the debris, sealed tight. My men pulled it aboard. We opened it immediately. Inside were papers, a ship's log, and a letter sealed with wax. The letter was addressed to no one, simply marked, "To whoever finds this." I broke the seal and read. The letter was written by a captain named James Thorne. His ship was the Messenger. It had departed Plymouth 3 months ago. Bound for the Americas, the letter described their voyage. For 2 weeks, all went well. Then they began hearing sounds. Beneath the ship, under the hull, scratching sounds, as if something scraped the wood from below. Captain Thorne sent divers to investigate. They found nothing, no damage to the hull, no explanation for the sounds. But the scratching continued, growing louder each night, more persistent. Then crew members began to vanish. One man went below to check the hold. He did not return. Others went to search for him. They found his clothes, folded neatly on the floor, but no man. Over the next week, 6 more men disappeared, always the same. They went below. They did not return. Only their clothes were found. Captain Thorne ordered no one to go below. The hold was sealed, but the scratching grew louder. It moved through the ship, from below the hull to inside the hold. Men reported hearing movement in the sealed space, things being dragged across the floor. Captain Thorne wrote his letter as a warning. He wrote that something had come aboard with the cargo, something from the Americas, something that lived in the hold, and now lived in the ship itself. The letter ended with a final sentence. "It is climbing up. Soon it will reach the deck. I am the last one left. I am sealing this letter. Perhaps someone will understand what took us." I finished reading and looked at my crew. They stared at me in silence. I ordered the chest thrown overboard. We wanted nothing from that cursed vessel. But it was too late. That night, we heard scratching. Beneath our own hull, under our own ship, the same sound Captain Thorne described. I have ordered all hands to remain on deck. No one is to go below. The hold is sealed, but I hear it, even now, scratching its way up through our ship. Henry Bolton, captain at sea, English Channel. 11th June 1723, archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The Steadfast was found drifting off Dover on June the 15th, 1723. No crew aboard. The ship was intact. The hold was sealed from the inside. Deep scratches covered the interior of the hull. Human teeth were found scattered throughout the hold. The chest was never recovered. End of file. Case file. NOA 16778. Classification. Monastery Infirmarian's Notes. Date of statement. 24th April, 1678. Location. Fountains Abbey, North Yorkshire. Notes of Brother Paul, Infirmarian V. Brother Paul, keeper of the infirmary. Do record the illness afflicting Brother Matthew. He fell sick 1 week ago. Fever consumed him. He spoke in delirium, words that made no sense. I attended him day and night, applying cooling cloths, administering what remedies I possessed. On the 3rd night, his fever broke. He woke, but he was changed. His eyes held no recognition. He looked at me as a stranger. I asked his name. He did not answer. I asked if he knew where he was. He said nothing. He only stared. I left him to rest. That evening, I found him gone from his bed. I searched the abbey. I found him in the ruins, the old part of the abbey, destroyed 100 years ago, never rebuilt. He stood among the broken stones, his hands moving, as if arranging invisible objects. I called to him. He did not respond. I approached and touched his shoulder. He turned to me. He spoke then, but the voice was not his own. Too deep, too old. He said he was Brother Thomas, infirmarian of Fountains Abbey. Died in the Colne, year of our Lord 1470. He said he had been working when the fever took him. He had patients to tend. He could not rest, not while patients needed care. I tried to explain, to tell him the abbey was different now, that 200 years had passed. He did not understand. He insisted he had work to do. He walked to where the infirmary had once stood. Now only foundations remained. He knelt among the ruins. His hands moved again, tending invisible patients, applying invisible remedies. I watched him for an hour. He worked carefully, speaking to patients I could not see, comforting them, checking their conditions, as any good infirmarian would. At dawn, he collapsed. I carried him back to his bed. He slept for 2 days. When he woke, he was himself again. Brother Matthew returned. He remembered nothing of being Brother Thomas, nothing of working among the ruins, but something troubles me. After he woke, I visited the ruins, where he had knelt and worked. The ground was different, the stone floor, broken and overgrown with weeds, now showed marks in the dust, as if many people had lain there. Impressions of bodies, 6 of them, in neat rows, the way an infirmarian would arrange his patients. I told no one of this, but last night I could not sleep. I went to the ruins at midnight. I heard voices there, soft voices, speaking in pain, asking for water, asking for relief, and I heard footsteps, someone moving among the ruins, tending the voices. I saw no one, but I heard clearly. Brother Thomas continues his work. Even in death, even 2 centuries later, his patients still need him, and he cannot rest while they suffer. Brother Paul, infirmarian, Fountains Abbey, North Yorkshire, 24th April, 1678. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Brother Matthew recovered fully. Fountains Abbey's records confirm an infirmarian named Brother Thomas died in 1470 during an outbreak of fever. He had 6 patients in his care. All perished. Local visitors to the ruins report hearing voices and footsteps in the former infirmary location. End of file. Case file NOA1587K. Classification: Constable's testimony. Date of statement: 7th November 1587. Location: Bodmin Moor, Cornwall. Testimony of Constable Richard Trelawney. Constable of Bodmin Parish, do testify about the lights on the moor. For 1 month, travellers have reported strange lights, moving across the moor at night, floating lights, like lanterns carried by invisible hands. They appear near the old stone circle, 3 miles from the village. Travellers who follow the lights become lost. They wander for hours, unable to find the road again. Some are found the next morning, miles from where they should be, with no memory of how they travelled there. I went to investigate 2 nights ago. I brought 4 men with me. We reached the stone circle at sunset. We waited as darkness fell. At 9 o'clock, the lights appeared, 3 of them, floating 20 feet above the ground, moving slowly across the moor. They made no sound, cast no beams downward, simply glowed in the darkness. We followed at a distance. The lights moved in a pattern, circling the standing stones, then heading west toward the old burial mounds. We continued following. The lights stopped suddenly. They hovered over one spot, moving up and down, as if marking something. We approached carefully. Beneath the lights was disturbed earth, recently dug. I ordered my men to investigate. We dug carefully. 2 feet down, we found something. A body, a man, dead no more than 2 days. His throat had been cut. We did not recognize him, a stranger to our parish. The lights remained above us while we worked, watching, waiting. When we finished, the lights moved again. Heading toward another location, we followed. Again they stopped. Again they marked a spot. Again we dug. Another body, a woman this time, dead longer than the first. Perhaps 1 week. The same wound, throat cut. We continued following the lights. They led us to 5 burial sites, 5 bodies, all murdered, all hidden on the moor. The lights had shown us where to find them. After revealing the last body, the lights returned to the stone circle. They circled once more, then vanished. We have recovered all 5 bodies. None have been identified. Strangers to Cornwall. But someone knew they were there. Someone wanted them found. Something that moves across the moor, using lights to guide us, to reveal what was hidden. The lights appear each night now, but they no longer lead us anywhere. They simply circle the stones, waiting. Perhaps there are more bodies still. Perhaps they will guide us again. Richard Trelawney, Constable Bodmin Moor, Cornwall, 7th November, 1587. Archiver note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The lights of Bodmin Moor have been reported for 5 centuries. Local tradition calls them ghost lights. They continue to appear near the ancient stone circle. 3 more bodies were discovered in 1588, also revealed by the lights. No murderer was ever found. End of file. Case file NOA 1731 F classification. Innkeeper's account. Date of statement 1st December 1731. Location: the Black Swan Inn, York. Account of Margaret Ashford. Innkeeper was Margaret Ashford, keeper of the Black Swan. Do provide account of the stranger in room 9. He arrived 3 weeks ago. A gentleman of middle years. Well dressed, spoke little. He paid for 1 week in advance. He rarely left his room. Meals were brought to his door. He took them without showing his face, simply opening the door a crack, taking the tray, closing the door again. After 1 week, he paid for another. The same behavior continued. My maids reported strange sounds from his room. Scratching, like quill on paper. Constant scratching, day and night. One maid looked through the keyhole. She saw papers scattered everywhere, covering the floor, covering the bed, all filled with writing. The gentleman sat at the desk, writing continuously, never stopping. After 2 weeks, the scratching sound became louder, more frantic. Other guests complained. I went to speak with him. I knocked on his door. No answer came. The scratching continued. I knocked again, more firmly. Still no response. Only that endless scratching. I used my master key. I opened the door. The room was filled with papers, thousands of them, covering every surface, piled on the floor, hanging from strings across the room. The gentleman sat at the desk, his back to me, still writing. His hand moved rapidly across the page. I called out to him. He did not turn, did not pause. The scratching of his quill continued. I approached closer. I came around the desk to face him. What I saw stopped my breath. His eyes were open, but they were white, rolled back in his head. His mouth hung open. His hand moved by itself, writing words, but he was not conscious. He was not aware. Something else controlled his hand. I looked at the papers. Every sheet was covered in names, hundreds of names, written in different hands, different styles, as if many people had written them, but all by the same quill, the same ink, the same hand. At the bottom of each page was a date, a death date. I recognized some of the names, people from York, people who had died years ago, decades ago. All their names were here, with the dates they died. I backed away slowly. The gentleman continued writing, adding more names, more dates. I closed the door. I sent for a physician. Dr. Murray arrived within the hour. We entered together. The gentleman still wrote. Dr. Murray examined him. He said the man's heart barely beat. His breath was shallow. He should be dead. Yet his hand moved, writing name after name. We tried to stop him, tried to take the quill from his hand. His grip was iron. We could not move his fingers. Dr. Murray tried to wake him, shouted his name, shook his shoulders. Nothing worked. At sunset, the writing stopped. The quill fell from his hand. He slumped forward, dead. We searched his belongings. We found no identification, no papers except what he had written. Thousands of names, thousands of death dates, and at the top of the final page, his own name, Edward Wright, and today's date, Margaret Ashford, innkeeper, the Black Swan Inn, York, 1st December, 1731. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Edward Wright's body was buried in York. The papers he created were examined by church officials. Every name and date was verified against death records. All were accurate. The final page included 17 names with future dates. Or 17 people died on the dates Wright had written. The papers were burned in 1733. End of file. Case file NOA1626S. Classification: Asylum Attendance Report. Date of statement: 28th September 1626. Location: Bethlehem Hospital, London. Report of Attendant John Fletcher I. John Fletcher, attendant at Bethlehem Hospital, do report the patient in cell 12. His name is unknown. He was brought here 6 months ago, found wandering the streets of London, speaking to people who were not there. He continues this behavior all day, all night. He holds conversations with empty air, speaking as if others surround him. At first, we thought him simple-minded, mad with delusion. But something changed last month. He began describing the people he saw, in great detail. Names, appearances, histories. One day, he spoke of a woman named Alice Porter. He described her perfectly. Brown hair, blue dress, a scar on her left hand. He said she was worried about her son. The boy had fever. She feared he would not survive. The next day, news reached the hospital. A woman named Alice Porter lived near us. Her son had taken ill with fever. He died that night. The patient described her exact appearance. though he had never left his cell, had never seen her. This has happened 7 times now. He describes people in London, their concerns, their troubles. Within days, we learn he was accurate. Yesterday, he spoke of a man named Thomas Bright. He said Thomas was in great danger. He said Thomas stood on London Bridge. He was going to jump. He was ending his life. The patient became agitated. He shouted at the empty air beside him, begging Thomas not to jump, pleading with him to step back. The patient reached out, grasping at nothing. Then he screamed. He fell to his knees. He wept. He said Thomas had jumped. He said he watched him fall. This occurred at noon. At 3 o'clock, a body was pulled from the Thames. A man named Thomas Bright. He had jumped from London Bridge. At noon exactly. The patient saw it happen, from inside his locked cell. Today, the patient sits in silence, staring at the corner of his cell. I asked what he sees there. He said many people stand there, dozens of them, crowded together, all speaking at once, all wanting his attention. He said more arrive each day. The dead come to him. They show him where they are, what happens to them. He cannot stop seeing them, cannot escape them. He said they fill every space around him, pressing closer, growing more numerous. Soon, he said, there will be no room left. They will crowd him out. He begs them to leave, but they do not. They need someone to witness, someone to see. He is that witness, and they will not let him rest. John Fletcher, attendant Bethlehem Hospital, London, 28th September, 1626. Archive note, Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The patient died in October 1626. Attendants reported his cell was ice cold at the moment of death. He was found pressed into the corner, as if crushed by invisible weight. His final words were, "There is no more room." End of file. Case file NOA 1594M. Classification Parish Clerk's Chronicle. Date of statement 14th March 1594. Location Tintagel, Cornwall. Chronicle of Parish Clerk William Penrose I. William Penrose, Clerk of Tintagel Parish, do chronicle the events at the old castle ruins. The castle has been abandoned for 200 years. Only broken walls remain, perched on the cliff above the sea. Local people avoid it. They say it is cursed. Last month, a visitor came from London, a scholar named Dr. Edmund Hall. He wished to study the ruins. He asked permission to spend nights there, to observe the castle's history. We warned him against this. We told him of the stories. He dismissed our concerns. He said he feared no superstition. He went to the castle on the 1st of March. He brought supplies for 3 days. He planned to document the ruins. On the 4th day, he did not return. We went to search for him. We found him at the castle, sitting among the ruins, staring at nothing. He did not respond when we called. We approached him carefully. His eyes were open, but they saw nothing. He muttered constantly, the same words repeated. They are still here, all of them still here. We brought him back to the village. The physician examined him. He said Dr. Hall was in shock. Something had terrified him beyond reason. For 2 days, he said nothing else, only those words. They are still here. On the 3rd day, he spoke more clearly. He told us what he saw. The first night, he heard sounds, footsteps on stone, voices calling out, orders being shouted. He thought other visitors had come. He went to investigate. He found no one, but the sounds continued. growing louder, the sounds of a castle in use, doors opening and closing, fires crackling, people moving through halls, all around him, but invisible. The second night was worse. He saw them, figures moving through the ruins, men in ancient armor, women in old dress, children running, all transparent, like images made of mist. They did not see him. They went about their business, living in a castle that no longer existed, walking through walls that had fallen, climbing stairs that were now rubble. Dr. Hall watched them for hours. Dozens of people, all dead for centuries, all continuing their lives, unaware they had ended. He said the castle was full as it had been at the height of its glory, but only he could see them, only he could hear them. They lived in the ruins, still performing duties, still serving lords long dead, still trapped in their final moments. Dr. Hall left Tintagel yesterday. He swore never to return. He said the castle holds everyone who ever died there. They cannot leave. They repeat their last days. Forever. William Penrose, Parish Clerk. Tintagel, Cornwall, 14th March, 1594. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Tintagel Castle has been investigated by multiple researchers. Many report similar experiences. Audio recordings from the site capture sounds of activity. Photographs sometimes show transparent figures. The castle ruins remain one of the most documented paranormal locations in Britain. End of file. Case file NOA 1708V. Classification. Doctor's case notes. Date of statement 22nd May 1708. Location Bristol, Somerset. Case notes of Dr. Henry Blackwood first. Dr. Henry Blackwood, physician of Bristol, do record the case of Sarah Morton. She is 16 years old. She came to my surgery last week. She complained of voices. She heard them constantly. Dozens of voices, all speaking at once. She could not distinguish words, only a constant murmuring, like distant conversation. I examined her thoroughly. Her ears showed no infection, no physical cause for the phenomenon. I prescribed rest and quiet. She returned 3 days later. The voices had grown louder. Now she could understand some words. They spoke of things that had not yet happened. A fire on Ship Street, a child falling ill, a merchant's shipwreck. I recorded her predictions carefully, thinking to prove them false, to show her the voices were imagination. 2 days later, a fire occurred on Ship Street. A merchant's son fell ill with fever. News arrived of a shipwreck. A Bristol merchant lost his vessel. Everything Sarah had heard came true. She returned to me yesterday, in great distress. The voices were now deafening. Hundreds of them, all predicting future events. She covered her ears, but it made no difference. The voices came from inside her head. She told me what they said. Specific events, dates, names. I have written down 23 predictions. I pray they are wrong, but I fear they will prove accurate. Sarah asked me to help her, to make the voices stop. I have no remedy for this. No medicine can quiet voices from the future. She says the voices grow more numerous each hour. Soon there will be too many, too much noise. She will go mad from it. She asked me one question before leaving. She asked if I heard them too. I said no. She looked at me sadly. She said, "They are speaking about you now. They say you will die soon. A fall from your horse. On the London road. 3 days from now. I do not believe this, but I confess to unease. I will avoid the London road. I will be careful. But the voices spoke truly before. What if they speak truly now? Dr. Henry Blackwood, Bristol, Somerset, 22nd May, 1708. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Dr. Blackwood died on May the 25th, 1708. He fell from his horse on the London road. Sarah Morton was committed to an asylum 1 week later. She could no longer function. The voices had become overwhelming. She died in 1709. Her final words were, "They never stop speaking. The future never stops coming." End of file. Case file NOA1649L. Classification: Cathedral Verger's account. Date of statement: 13th July 1649. Location: Durham Cathedral. County Durham account of Verger Thomas Woodward Thurse. Thomas Woodward, Verger of Durham Cathedral. Do provide account of the singing in the catacombs. Our cathedral has extensive catacombs beneath. Burial chambers from centuries past. I maintain the keys to these spaces. I inspect them monthly to ensure no damage or flooding. Last month, during my inspection, I heard music, chanting, beautiful chanting in Latin, coming from deep within the catacombs. I followed the sound, through narrow passages, past rows of ancient tombs. The chanting grew louder as I progressed, multiple voices singing in harmony, a full choir. I reached the oldest section of the catacombs, the Norman burial chambers. The chanting came from within. I entered cautiously. The chamber was empty, no living person present, but the singing continued, all around me, echoing off stone walls. I stood in the center of the chamber. The voices sang the Requiem Mass, perfect Latin pronunciation, perfect harmony. I recognized the piece. It had not been sung in Durham Cathedral for 100 years, banned during the Reformation. Yet here it was, performed flawlessly by invisible singers. I remained for 1 hour. The Mass continued without pause. When it ended, there was silence, complete silence. Then footsteps, many feet walking, processing around me in a circle. I saw no one, but I felt them pass. Cold air moving, the presence of many bodies. They completed their circle. Then the footsteps descended, going deeper into the catacombs, to levels I have never explored, levels sealed since medieval times. I have returned 3 times since, always at the same hour, always the same occurrence. The singing begins, the Requiem Mass performed, the procession circles, then descends to the sealed levels. I consulted cathedral records. In the year 1437, a plague struck Durham. 60 monks died in 1 month. They were buried in the catacombs. The bishop ordered a Requiem Mass sung. The entire surviving community participated. They processed through the catacombs, singing for their dead brothers, then sealed the burial chambers to prevent further contagion. That was the last requiem sung in these catacombs. Until now, the monks continue their Mass every month for the brothers they lost, for themselves, singing eternally in the darkness. Thomas Woodward, Verger Durham Cathedral, County Durham, 13th July 1649. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The sealed chambers were opened in 1823 during renovations. Workers reported hearing singing and fled. The chambers were immediately resealed. Cathedral staff continue to report the monthly requiem. Recordings made in the catacombs capture faint chanting that cannot be explained. End of file. Case file NOA1562P. Classification: Tollgate Keeper's Report. Date of statement: 9th October 1562. Location: Great North Road, Hertfordshire. Report of Tollgate Keeper William Marsh IV. William Marsh, Keeper of the Northern Tollgate, do report the coach that passes each midnight. For 6 weeks I have seen it. A black coach drawn by 4 black horses. It approaches from the south, moving rapidly. The horses gallop at full speed. The coach rocks violently, as if the driver cannot control it. I step from my gate to collect the toll. The coach does not slow. It races past me, close enough to touch. I see the driver clearly. His face is pale, his eyes wide with terror. His hands pull desperately at the reins, but the horses do not obey. They gallop on, foam flying from their mouths, eyes rolling in fear. Inside the coach, I see passengers, their faces pressed to the windows, screaming, mouths open wide, but no sound reaches me. Silent screaming. The coach races past my gate, heading north up the road. I watch it disappear into the darkness. No sound of hooves on the road, no creaking of wheels. It moves in complete silence. One night, I tried to stop it. I stood in the middle of the road, holding my lantern high. The coach approached at full gallop. I held my ground. The horses bore down on me. I closed my eyes, expecting impact. The coach passed through me, through my body. I felt intense cold, a moment of absolute darkness. Then it was gone. Behind me on the road, continuing north, I turned and ran after it, to see where it went. I followed for 2 miles. The coach maintained its speed, never slowing, never stopping. Then it vanished, not gradually, instantly. One moment racing ahead, the next gone, as if it never existed. I asked other travelers about this coach. Several have seen it, always at midnight, always heading north. One old man told me a story. 20 years ago, a coach left London at dusk, carrying a nobleman and his family. They were fleeing something, some danger in the city. The driver was ordered to make all speed, to not stop for anything. They passed through here after midnight, racing north. The horses were exhausted, foaming and wild-eyed, but the driver did not stop. 10 miles north, the coach left the road. A wheel broke on a stone. The coach overturned, rolled down an embankment. All inside were killed. The driver, the nobleman, his wife, their 3 children. They say the nobleman died still screaming, still fleeing, whatever danger pursued him. Now the coach repeats that final journey, every night, racing north, unable to stop, unable to escape. William Marsh, Tollgate Keeper, Great North Road, Hertfordshire. 9th October 1562. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The phantom coach has been reported for 4 centuries. The crash site was excavated in 1705. 6 skeletons were found, matching the story. Modern motorists on the A1 road report seeing a black coach appear suddenly at midnight. Several accidents have been attributed to drivers swerving to avoid it. End of file. Case file NOA1754. Classification: Schoolteacher's Journal. Date of statement: 27th January 1754. Location: Haworth, West Yorkshire. Journal entry of teacher Rebecca Mills. Rebecca Mills, school teacher of Haworth, do record the incident with young Annabelle. Anna is 10 years old. an excellent student, quiet and well-mannered. 1 week ago, she began drawing during lessons. Instead of attending to her work, she drew the same image repeatedly. A house, a specific house with unusual features. I asked her about the drawings. She said the house appeared in her dreams. Every night for the past month. She saw it clearly. She walked through its rooms. She knew every detail, but she had never seen this house in waking life. The drawings were remarkably detailed. For a child her age, she drew the windows, the door, the chimney, even the pattern of stones in the walls. Yesterday, a traveller came to Haworth, a merchant from Leeds. He brought goods to sell. He saw Anna's drawings on my desk. His face went pale. He asked where I had obtained them. I explained a student had drawn them. He asked to speak with Anna. She described the house to him. She described the interior, the placement of furniture, the paintings on the walls. The merchant was shaken. He said the house was his, in Leeds. Anna had drawn it perfectly, down to details only someone inside would know. A crack in the ceiling, a loose stone in the fireplace. She had never been to Leeds, never seen his house, yet she knew it intimately. The merchant asked what else Anna had seen. She hesitated, then told him about the room, the locked room upstairs. She said something was hidden there, something the merchant wanted no one to find. The merchant's face went white. He asked how she could know this. Anna said she dreamed of the room every night. She stood outside the locked door. She heard sounds within, scratching, like someone trying to escape. She heard a voice, a woman's voice, calling for help. The merchant fled. He left his goods. He ran from the school. I have not seen him since. Anna continues to dream of the house. Now she sees inside the locked room. She sees a woman, bound and gagged, unable to move, unable to call out, dying slowly. I have written to authorities in Leeds. I have described the house. I have shared Anna's visions. I pray they investigate. I pray they find nothing. But I fear what they may discover. Rebecca Mills, school teacher, Haworth, West Yorkshire. 27th January 1754. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Leeds constables investigated the merchant's house on February the 3rd. They broke open the locked room. They found the body of a woman, the merchant's wife. She had been imprisoned for 6 weeks. The merchant was arrested fleeing to Scotland. Annabelle never dreamed of the house again after the woman was found. End of file. Case file. NOA 1683. H. Classification. Miller's statement. Date of statement. 5th March, 1683. Location. Wicken Fen, Cambridgeshire. Statement of Miller, John Hewitt. And John Hewitt, Miller of Wicken, do provide statement about the figure in the fen. My mill sits beside the water, surrounded by marsh and reed beds. I work alone most days, grinding grain for local farmers. Last month, I saw someone walking in the fen, a woman, moving slowly through the marsh. She wore a long dress. The hem dragged through the water. I called out to her, warning her of deep water ahead. She did not respond. She continued walking, heading deeper into the fen. I watched her until she disappeared behind the reeds. I thought she would return, realizing her error. She did not. I saw her again the next day, in the same location, walking the same path. This time I went to stop her. I waded into the marsh, following her route. She moved steadily ahead, never looking back. I called to her repeatedly. She gave no sign of hearing. She walked into deep water. Water up to her waist, then her shoulders, then her neck, I shouted for her to stop. She did not. She disappeared beneath the surface. I reached the spot within moments. I searched the water. I found nothing. No body. No sign she had been there. The next morning, she appeared again, walking from the reeds, heading into deep water. The same route, the same steady pace. I did not follow this time. I watched from the mill. She walked until the water took her, then vanished. This has continued for 1 month. Every morning at dawn, she appears from the reeds. She walks into the deep water. She disappears. I asked old Thomas Gray about this. He is 80 years old. He has lived by the fen all his life. He knows the story. 50 years ago, a young woman drowned in the fen. Her name was Sarah Ward. She was betrothed to a local farmer. On their wedding day, she discovered he loved another. She fled the church. She ran into the fen. She walked into the deep water. She was never seen again. Her body was never recovered. The marsh took her. Thomas said she has walked the fen ever since, repeating her final walk every dawn. For 50 years, she walks from the reeds. She walks into the water. She drowns again, and again, and again, forever reliving that moment, unable to stop, unable to choose differently. I see her every morning now. I no longer try to save her. I cannot save someone already dead. John Hewitt, Milliwicken Fen, Cambridgeshire, 5th March, 1683. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The woman of Wicken Fen has been seen for 3 centuries, always at dawn, always walking to the same deep water. Fen workers report identical sightings. Attempts to recover Sarah Ward's remains have failed. The marsh keeps what it takes. End of file. Case file NOA 1548D. Classification Magistrate's Record. Date of statement 18th November 1548. Location Hexham, Northumberland. Record of Magistrate Edward Norton I. Edward Norton, Magistrate of Hexham. Do record the case of the bells. Every church bell in Hexham rang last night, all at once, at 3 o'clock in the morning. No one pulled the ropes. No one entered the churches. The bells simply rang, all of them, for 5 minutes continuous, then stopped simultaneously. The entire town woke. Hundreds of people heard it. All the churches, all the bells, ringing together. I investigated immediately. I checked every church. All were locked. All were empty. The bell ropes hung still. No sign of disturbance. I questioned the church wardens. None had entered during the night. None heard anything before the ringing began. The bells simply rang by themselves. That night, it happened again. 3 o'clock. Every bell in Hexham, ringing together. This time I was ready. I stood in St. Andrew's Church, watching the bell rope. At 3 o'clock, the rope moved, pulled by invisible hands. The bell rang above. I ran to stop it. I grasped the rope. It pulled through my grip with tremendous force. I could not hold it. The rope burned my palms. The bell rang on. In every church, the same occurrence. This has continued for 7 nights. Always at 3 o'clock. Always all the bells together. The people of Hexham are terrified. They say it is a warning, a sign of coming disaster. I consulted historical records. I found something troubling. 200 years ago, in 1348, plague came to Hexham. The bells rang to warn the people, to call them to prayer. They rang at 3 o'clock each morning, summoning the living, mourning the dead. 600 people died that winter, half the town. The bells rang every day until the plague ended. The final morning, all the bells rang together, a farewell to the dead, then fell silent. Now they ring again, the same pattern, the same hour. I fear what this portends. I have written to the bishop. I have asked for guidance. But the bells continue, every night, ringing their warning, ringing their mourning. Edward Norton, Magistrate Hexham, Northumberland, 18th November, 1548. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft, plague, struck Hexham in December 1548. 300 residents died over the winter. The bells rang every night until March 1549, then stopped. Hexham's bells ring spontaneously during each subsequent plague or disaster. They rang in 1665, 1745 and 1918. Always at 3 o'clock. End of file. Case file. NOA 1712T. Classification. Coachman's account. Date of statement. 23rd June, 1712. Location. Hounslow Heath, Middlesex. Account of coachman Robert Dale First. Hey, Robert Dale, coachman on the London to Bath route. Do provide account of the highwayman. I have driven this route for 15 years. I know every mile of road, every inn and toll gate. One stretch I particularly dread. Hounslow Heath. 5 miles of lonely road, known for robberies. Many coaches have been stopped there. Many travellers robbed, some killed. 3 nights ago, I was crossing the heath, just past midnight. My passengers were a merchant and his wife. The night was clear. A full moon lit the road. I saw him ahead, a figure on horseback, blocking the road. I slowed the coach. I reached for my pistol. The figure did not move. I called out, demanding he clear the way. He remained still, silent. I fired a warning shot. The horse reared. The rider sat unmoving, somehow staying mounted despite the horse's panic. I fired again. The shot struck the rider directly. He did not fall, did not flinch. The bullet passed through him, as if he were smoke. He turned his horse toward us. He rode closer. I could see him clearly now in the moonlight. His face was a skull, bone where flesh should be, empty sockets where eyes should be. He wore the clothes of a highwayman, coat and hat, both riddled with holes, bullet holes. He rode alongside the coach. He looked in at my passengers. The merchant's wife screamed. The merchant froze, unable to move. The skeletal rider raised one hand. He pointed at the merchant. Then he rode ahead, blocking the road again. I whipped the horses. We drove straight at him. We passed through him, through horse and rider both. I felt nothing, saw nothing, just cold air. We continued at full speed. I did not slow until we reached Hounslow town. My passengers were pale, shaking. The merchant told me a story. 10 years ago, he travelled this same road. A highwayman stopped his coach. The merchant had a pistol hidden. He shot the highwayman, killed him. The man fell dead on Hounslow Heath. His body was left there as warning to other thieves. Now he rides again, stopping coaches, looking for the man who killed him. The merchant believes the ghost recognized him, pointed at him, marked him. He fears what will happen next. I told him he was safe. The ghost could not touch him, could not harm him. I was wrong. The merchant died last night, in his sleep, no mark upon him, but his face was frozen in terror, as if he died screaming. Robert Dale, coachman Hounslow Heath, Middlesex, 23rd June, 1712. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The skeletal highwayman of Hounslow Heath has been reported for 3 centuries. Multiple coachmen describe identical encounters. The figure always points at specific passengers. Those identified typically die within days. The original highwayman's identity remains unknown. His bones were never recovered from the heath. End of file. Case file NOA1637M. Classification: Factory Overseer's Report. Date of statement: 9th April 1637. Location: Norwich, Norfolk. Report of Overseer Thomas Wright Force. Thomas Wright, Overseer of the Textile Works, do report the accident in the weaving room. A girl named Mary Fletcher works the looms. She is 14 years old, quick with her hands, reliable. Yesterday morning, she stopped working. She stood before her loom, staring at nothing. I called to her. She did not respond. Other workers noticed. They stopped to watch. Mary raised her hand slowly. She pointed at the machinery. She spoke. Her voice was strange, deeper than usual. The wheel will break. I asked what she meant. She did not answer me. She spoke again. The wheel will break. 7 will fall. 3 will not rise. Then she collapsed. We carried her to the rest room. She woke after 1 hour. She remembered nothing. She insisted she was well. She returned to work. I checked the machinery carefully. The wheels showed no damage, no signs of weakness. Everything appeared sound. That afternoon, a wheel broke. The great wheel that drives the looms. It shattered without warning. Pieces flew through the room. 7 workers were struck. 3 died instantly. Mary was among them, crushed by falling machinery. She had predicted her own death and the deaths of 2 others. I found something after. In Mary's belongings, a small book, a journal. She had been writing in it for months. Every entry was a prediction. Deaths in the factory, accidents before they happened. I read them all. Every prediction came true. Every death occurred exactly as she described. She knew. She saw these things before they happened. She could not stop them. She could only watch and record and wait. The final entry was dated yesterday, the morning of the accident. It said, "Today I die. The wheel breaks. I see my own end. I cannot stop it. I can only witness. I have given the journal to her family. They burned it. They did not want to know what Mary knew. They did not want to see the future. But I wonder, did she see other deaths? Deaths yet to come? Did the journal contain more predictions, more warnings we will never read?" Thomas Wright, Overseer, Norwich, Norfolk, 9th April 1637. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The textile works closed in 1639 after multiple fatal accidents. Workers refused to return. They claimed they heard Mary Fletcher's voice warning them, calling out predictions. The building burned down in 1640. The fire started in the old weaving room. No cause was ever determined. End of file. Case file NOA1576K. Classification: Sexton's Chronicle. Date of statement: 14th August 1576. Location: St. Petrock's Church, Bodmin. Cornwall Chronicle of Sexton, William Hicks I says William Hicks, Sexton of St. Petrock's, to chronicle events in the graveyard. My duties include maintaining the cemetery, digging graves, filling them after burial, keeping the grounds tidy. I work alone most days. 2 weeks ago, I was digging a new grave. The earth was hard, compacted clay. My spade struck something solid. I cleared the dirt away. I found a stone, flat and carved, a gravestone, very old, buried beneath 3 feet of earth. I lifted it carefully. The inscription was in Latin, worn but readable. Here lies Brother Michael, died 1347. Let him sleep. I had uncovered a grave from 200 years past, a monk's grave, long forgotten. I reburied the stone. I dug the new grave in a different location. That night, I heard digging. Someone working in the graveyard. The sound of spade on earth. I took a lantern and investigated. The graveyard was empty, but the digging sound continued. Coming from where I had found the old gravestone, I approached carefully. The earth was disturbed, freshly moved, as if someone had been digging, but no one was there. The next morning, the old gravestone was visible again, lying on the surface, uncovered. I reburied it deeper this time, 3 feet of earth packed tight above it. That night, the digging returned, louder than before, more frantic. I went to the graveyard. The stone was uncovered again, lying on the surface, dirt piled beside it. I left it there. I thought perhaps it should remain visible. Perhaps Brother Michael wanted his grave marked. But the digging did not stop. Now it came from beneath the stone, under the ground, something digging from below, trying to break through. I pressed my ear to the earth. I heard scraping, fingernails on wood, on coffin wood. Something inside the grave, something trying to get out. I ran to fetch the priest. Father Benedict came immediately. He heard the sounds. He blessed the grave. He prayed over the stone. He commanded whatever was beneath to rest. The digging stopped. For one night. The next night, it resumed, louder than ever, more desperate. Father Benedict said, "We must open the grave, see what lay within, give proper burial if needed." We dug yesterday. 6 feet down, we found the coffin. Old wood, partially rotted. We opened it carefully. Inside was a skeleton, the bones of a monk, but the bones were wrong, positioned wrong. The skeleton lay face down, arms beneath the body, as if the man had been buried alive, had woken in the coffin, had tried to escape, had died trying. We gave Brother Michael proper burial. We placed him correctly. We said prayers for his soul. Last night, the graveyard was quiet. No digging, no sounds. Brother Michael rests now, after 200 years of trying to escape. William Hicks, Sexton St. Petrock's Church, Bodmin, Cornwall, 14th August, 1576. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft records from 1347 show Brother Michael was buried during the Black Death. Speed of burial was essential to prevent contagion. Many were buried in haste. Some were buried alive by accident. Brother Michael's grave has remained undisturbed since 1576. End of file. Case file NOA 1745R. Classification: In servant's testimony. Date of statement: 2nd December, 1745. Location: the Three Crowns Inn, Winchester, Hampshire. Testimony of servant Elizabeth Ward Fuss. Elizabeth Ward, serving girl at the Three Crowns. Do testify about the gentleman in room 8. He arrived 1 month ago. A well-dressed man of middle years, polite, quiet. He asked for our most secluded room. He paid for 2 weeks in advance. He left the room only for meals. Otherwise, he remained inside. We heard him pacing, back and forth, hours of pacing, wearing the floorboards. After 2 weeks, he paid for 2 more. The pacing continued. One day, I was cleaning the corridor. I heard him speaking in his room, having a conversation. I assumed he had a visitor, but no one had entered. I listened at the door. He spoke to someone named Thomas. He apologized repeatedly. "I am sorry, Thomas. I did not mean it. I am so sorry." Over and over. I reported this to the innkeeper. He suggested the gentleman might be unwell, talking to himself. Yesterday, another guest complained. He said the gentleman was keeping him awake, shouting at night, arguing with someone. The innkeeper decided to investigate. We went to room 8 together. The innkeeper knocked. No answer came. He knocked again. We heard a crash inside, furniture overturning. The innkeeper used his master key. We entered quickly. The room was in chaos. The bed overturned, chairs scattered. The gentleman stood in the corner, staring at the opposite wall, terror on his face. "He is here," the gentleman said. "Thomas is here. He has found me." We asked who Thomas was. The gentleman pointed at the wall. "There. He stands there. Can you not see him?" We saw nothing. Just an empty wall. The gentleman backed away. "I did not mean to kill you, Thomas. It was an accident. Please forgive me." He fell to his knees. He wept. He begged forgiveness from the empty air. The innkeeper tried to calm him. The gentleman seized his arm. "You must see him. He is right there. His throat is cut. Blood covers his shirt. He points at me. He accuses me." We saw nothing. The gentleman collapsed. We carried him to his bed. He died within the hour. His final words were, "He has come for me." After his death, we searched his belongings. We found letters from a man named Thomas Green. They told a story. The gentleman's name was Robert Marsh. Thomas Green was his business partner. They had quarreled over money. The quarrel became violent. Robert killed Thomas, cut his throat. He hid the body. He fled to Kirkcaldy, Winchester. But Thomas found him, followed him in death, accused him, drove him mad, and finally took him. Elizabeth Ward, servant, the 3 Crowns Inn, Winchester, Hampshire, 2nd December, 1745. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Thomas Green's body was discovered in London 3 weeks later. His throat had been cut. Robert Marsh was posthumously identified as the murderer. Room 8 was redecorated in 1746. Guests still report seeing a figure standing against the wall, a man with a cut throat, pointing, end of file. Case file, NOA 1692, F classification, Merchant's Record, date of statement, 19th February, 1692. Location, Chester, Cheshire. Record of merchant, David Harrison. David Harrison, cloth merchant of Chester. Do record the mirror in my shop. I acquired it last month, part of an estate sale. A large mirror in an ornate frame, gilded and beautiful. I placed it in my shop to show customers how fabrics looked when worn. The first day, nothing unusual occurred. The second day, a customer looked into the mirror. She screamed. She ran from the shop. I asked what frightened her. She said she saw someone standing behind her in the reflection. A woman in old-fashioned dress. But no one stood there in reality. I examined the mirror myself. I saw only my own reflection. The next day, 3 more customers reported the same thing. A woman in the mirror, standing behind them, watching them. I began to notice it too. Glimpses in the corner of the reflection, movement when nothing moved, a figure that vanished when looked at directly. I covered the mirror. I thought to remove it from the shop, but something stopped me. Curiosity. I decided to observe it carefully. I sat before the mirror at night, after closing, with only candlelight. I watched my reflection. For 1 hour, nothing occurred. Then I saw her, in the mirror behind me, a woman in a grey dress. Her face was pale, her expression sad. She stood motionless. I turned quickly. No one was there. I looked back at the mirror. She remained in the reflection. She raised one hand slowly. She pointed at something behind me. I turned again. Nothing. I looked at the mirror. She pointed more insistently, at the floor behind me. I stood and examined the floorboards. One board was loose. I pried it up. Beneath was a small space. Inside lay a bundle of letters and a locket. I read the letters. They were love letters, written by a woman named Catherine to a man named James. They dated from 50 years ago. The final letter told a tragic story. Catherine was pregnant. James had abandoned her. She could not face the shame. She ended her life. The locket contained a portrait, a young woman, the same woman I saw in the mirror. Catherine. I researched the building's history. This shop was once a dwelling. Catherine lived here. She died here, in the room where the mirror now stands. I have given the letters to the church for proper keeping. I have had prayers said for Catherine's soul, but she remains in the mirror. I see her often now. She no longer points. She simply watches, waiting. For what, I do not know. David Harrison, Merchant Chester, Cheshire, 19th February 1692. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The mirror remained in the shop until 1710. It was sold to a collector in London. Multiple subsequent owners reported seeing the same figure. The mirror was eventually donated to a museum in 1823. Museum staff report the woman still appears, still watching, still waiting. End of file. Case file. NOA1539B. Classification. Night Watchman's Log. Date of statement. 26th July, 1539. Location. Tower of London, London. Watchman's Log of John Porter. Worse, John Porter, night watchman of the tower. Do record the events of last night. I patrol the tower grounds during darkness, checking doors, ensuring security. I have done this work for 5 years. I know every shadow, every sound. Last night was different. I began my rounds at 10 o'clock. All was normal until midnight. I was passing the White Tower. I heard footsteps behind me, boot heels on stone. I turned. No one was there. I continued my patrol. The footsteps followed, matching my pace, stopping when I stopped. I called out. No answer came. I drew my sword. I walked toward the sound. The footsteps retreated, staying just out of sight. I pursued them through the grounds. They led me to the bloody tower. The steps stopped at the entrance. I heard a door open. The old wooden door to the tower, but I watched it. It did not move, yet I heard it clearly. Hinges creaking, door swinging wide, then footsteps climbing stairs. Inside the tower, ascending to the upper chambers, I followed. The tower was dark. My lamp lit the stairs. I climbed cautiously. The footsteps continued above me, always one flight ahead. I reached the upper chamber, the room where princes were kept and murdered. 2 young princes, 400 years ago. The footsteps stopped. I heard children's voices, whispering, speaking words I could not distinguish. I raised my lamp. The room was empty, but the whispering continued. 2 voices, young voices, frightened voices. They spoke together. Then one voice cried out, a child's scream, cut short, then silence. I fled down the stairs. I ran from the tower. I did not stop until I reached the guardhouse. Other watchmen asked what happened. I could not speak. I simply shook my head. This morning, I returned to the chamber. In daylight, with 3 other men. We found nothing unusual, no sign of disturbance. But on the stone floor was something. Small footprints. Child-sized prints. In dust. 2 sets of prints. Walking to the corner, where the princes were said to have died. Then no, more prints. As if the children simply vanished there. I will not patrol the bloody tower again. Let another watchman take that duty. I cannot face those voices, those small footprints. That terrible scream cut short. John Porter, Watchman, Tower of London, 26 July 1539. Archive note, Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The princes in the tower died in 1483. Their bodies were discovered buried in the White Tower in 1674. Multiple watchmen have reported similar experiences. Footsteps, children's voices, the scream. The Tower of London remains one of the most haunted locations in Britain. End of file. Case file. NOA 1728L classification. Gardener's account. Date of statement 11th May 1728. Location Hampton Court Palace, Surrey. Account of head gardener. Thomas Gray Bussard, Thomas Gray, head gardener of Hampton Court. Do provide account of the maze. I maintain the famous hedge maze. I know every path, every turn, every dead end. No one knows it better. 3 days ago, I was trimming hedges deep in the maze. I heard laughter, a woman's laughter. I called out, asking who was there. The laughter continued, moving through the maze. I followed the sound. I turned corners quickly. I knew shortcuts. I should have caught whoever played this game. But the laughter stayed ahead of me. Always one turn beyond reach. I pursued for 20 minutes. Finally, I stopped. The laughter stopped as well. Then I heard footsteps, running footsteps. Someone fleeing through the maze. I gave chase. The footsteps led me deeper, to the very center of the maze. I emerged into the central clearing. No one was there, but the footsteps continued, circling the clearing, around and around. I spun, trying to see who ran. Nothing, just footsteps on the gravel path, invisible feet running in circles. Then I heard breathing, heavy breathing, as if someone ran in panic, unable to escape. The breathing grew more desperate, gasping, sobbing, then a scream, a woman's scream of absolute terror, then silence, complete silence. I stood alone in the center of the maze. I have worked at Hampton Court for 30 years. I know the history. I know the stories. Catherine Howard was queen here, wife of King Henry. She was accused of adultery. She tried to reach the king, to plead for her life. Guards chased her through the palace. She ran, she screamed, she begged for mercy. She was caught. She was executed. Some say her ghost haunts the palace. Running eternally, screaming eternally, trying to reach the king. But I never believed these stories, until now. I heard her, in my maze, running from guards 400 years dead. still fleeing, still screaming, still unable to escape. I have gone back to the maze center 3 times, each time at the same hour. Each time I hear the same thing, the laughter, the running, the breathing, the scream. Catherine Howard runs through my maze, trapped in a pattern, a ghost in a garden, forever pursued, forever caught. Thomas Gray, head gardener, Hampton Court Palace, Surrey, 11th May 1728. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Catherine Howard was executed in 1542. Her ghost has been reported at Hampton Court for centuries. Staff describe hearing running footsteps and screams. The maze was planted in 1690, long after her death, yet she appears there, as if the pattern of pursuit continues wherever space allows her to run. End of file. Case file NOA1653. W classification. Librarian's notes. Date of statement 7th October 1653. Location Cambridge University, Cambridgeshire. Notes of librarian Samuel White. R. Samuel White, head librarian of Trinity College. Do record the incident with the book. A student came to me yesterday. He wished to access a particular volume, an ancient text on astronomy. I retrieved it from the restricted section. The book was very old, bound in leather. The pages yellowed with age. The student took it to a reading desk. I watched him from my station. After 1 hour, he approached me. His face was pale. He said the book contained something strange. I asked what he meant. He said there was writing in the margins, notes written by previous readers. This is not unusual. Many old books contain marginalia. But these notes, he said, were different. They responded to each other. A conversation across time. Different hands, different inks, different centuries, all discussing the text, arguing with each other. I examined the book myself. He was correct. The margins were filled with notes. One notation from 1512, another responding to it from 1540, a third joining the argument from 1590. They debated a point of astronomical theory, each writer addressing the previous writers by name, as if they knew each other, as if they conversed, but separated by decades, by death itself. I studied the book more carefully. I found something troubling. The most recent notation was dated yesterday. Fresh ink, a new voice joining the ancient conversation. It was written in the student's hand, but the student swore he wrote nothing. He had only read the existing notes. I sent him away. I kept the book. I decided to observe it. I sat at the desk. I opened the book. I read the marginal conversation. As I read, new words appeared, forming before my eyes, in the blank spaces, fresh ink spreading across the page, writing itself. Another voice joining the discussion. The words address me by name. Samuel White, you read our discourse. Will you not join us? My hand reached for a quill. I did not will it to move. It moved by itself. I tried to stop it. I could not. My hand wrote in the margin. Words I did not compose, joining the ancient argument. I pulled my hand away with effort. I closed the book. I locked it in the restricted section. I will not open it again. But I fear for the next reader, the next person who discovers that book. Will they join the conversation? Will they add their voice? Will they become part of something that spans centuries? Something that does not end with death? Samuel White, Librarian, Trinity College, Cambridge, 7th October, 1653. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft, The book was examined in 1702. It contained 43 different hands spanning 200 years. Each writer claimed to have been compelled to write. The book was sealed in 1703. It remains unopened in Trinity College's deepest vault. The last notation read, "We wait for the next reader. End of file. Case file. NOA1585P. Classification. Ferryman statement. Date of statement, 3rd September 1585. Location, River Thames, London. Statement of ferryman, William Cross vs. William Cross, ferryman of the Thames. Do provide statement about the boat. I work the river between Southwark and the city. I ferry passengers back and forth. Day and night. I know the river well. Every current, every danger. Last week, I saw another boat, at midnight, crossing the river, a small rowboat. One person rowing. I called out in greeting. No answer came. The boat continued across the water, moving against the current, too easily. I followed to offer assistance. As I drew near, I saw the rower clearly, a woman in white, her hair hanging loose, her face down. She rowed with steady rhythm, never looking up, never pausing. I called to her. She did not respond. I came alongside. I reached out to touch her boat. My hand passed through it, through the wooden hull, as if the boat were mist. The woman continued rowing. She reached the far shore. She stepped from the boat onto the bank. She walked up the stairs. She disappeared into the city. The boat remained at the shore, empty. I rowed over to examine it. As I approached, it faded, becoming transparent, then vanishing entirely. I have seen this boat 5 times now, always at midnight, always the same woman, always the same route. I asked other watermen about it. Several have seen it. All describe the same thing. A woman in white, rowing a phantom boat. One old ferryman told me the story. 30 years ago, a young woman drowned. She was crossing the river at night. Her boat capsized. She could not swim. The current took her. Her body was never recovered. Now she crosses every night, completing the journey she never finished, rowing to the shore she never reached, walking to the home she never returned to, forever crossing, forever arriving, forever disappearing, unable to stop, unable to rest. I see her most nights now. I no longer try to speak to her. I simply watch and wonder, will she cross forever? Will she ever reach her true destination? Or is she doomed to repeat this journey? Night after night, across the dark water, alone. William Cross, Ferryman River Thames, London, 3rd September 1585. Archive note. Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. The phantom boat has been reported for 4 centuries. Thames watermen describe identical sightings. The woman's identity was never confirmed. Her body was never found. She continues her crossing. Every night at midnight, forever rowing home. End of file. Case file. NOA1767H. Classification. Jailer's record. Date of statement. 16th March 1767. Location, Newgate Prison, London. Record of Jailer Edward Blackwell I. Edward Blackwell, Chief Jailer of Newgate Prison. Do record the phenomenon in the condemned cells. Prisoners awaiting execution are kept in separate cells. They spend their final days alone, preparing for death. Last month, a condemned man named Thomas Gray was kept in cell 6. He was to hang in 1 week. The guards reported strange behavior. Thomas spoke to someone in his cell. He held conversations, long discussions, but he was alone. No one else was there. I questioned him about this. He said a man visited him, a previous occupant of the cell, a man who had hanged 2 years ago. I asked how he knew this. Thomas said the man told him. The man explained what hanging felt like, how long consciousness lasted, what came after. Thomas described the visitor in detail. A man named Richard Ward. I checked our records. Richard Ward was executed 2 years ago. Thomas described him perfectly, down to a scar on his cheek. Thomas could not have known these details. He had never met Richard Ward, never heard of him, yet he described him exactly. The next night, Thomas screamed. Guards found him pressed into the corner of his cell, terrified. He said 3 men now visited, all former occupants of cell 6, all hanged, all offering to show him what awaited. We moved Thomas to a different cell. He calmed somewhat, but 2 days later, he reported a new visitor, the former occupant of his new cell. Another hanged man, another guide to death. Thomas was executed last week. His final words were strange. As the noose went around his neck, he looked at the crowd. He said, "I see them all, everyone who hanged here. Hundreds of them. They watch, they wait. Soon I will join them. Soon I will visit the next occupant of my cell." Since Thomas died, the new prisoner in cell 6 reports a visitor. A man who comes at night. A man who tells him about hanging. Thomas Gray returned to guide the next condemned man, as others guided him. An endless chain, each hanged man returning, to prepare the next, to build the crowd that watches and waits and grows with each execution. Edward Blackwell, Chief Jailer, Newgate Prison, London, 16th March, 1767. Archive note: Dr. Nathaniel Ashcroft. Newgate Prison was demolished in 1902. Over 700 executions occurred there. Guards consistently reported condemned prisoners speaking to invisible visitors. Modern paranormal investigators at the site record hundreds of voices, all speaking at once, all describing hanging. The crowd remains, still watching, still waiting. End of file. Case closed to public record. The original document remains sealed within the vaults of the British Museum. The NOA archive remains committed to documenting phenomena that defy conventional understanding. These cases are submitted for academic review and further investigation. Further access requires written authorization or curiosity strong enough to ignore the warnings. Until next time. These are the National Occult Archives.